Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Boine.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Madame le député Labbé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Morel. Madame le député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Gauss.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham. Madame le député Moore. Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Osef. Monsieur le député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet. Madame le député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de la conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de ta bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple qu'il te plut de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en descend. Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi est la règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Sir, the Connétable of Saint Laurent is attending a hospital appointment with a close family member.
You wish her to be marked excusé?
Yes, please, sir.
Do members agree the member can be marked excusé? Yes, excusé.
Madame le député Dublé.
Deputy Dubé is malade, sir.
Vous jurez que Madame le député Dublé est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Monsieur le député Morel.
Defo.
Madame le Deputy Gardener.
Deputy Gardner remains Mallard.
Vous jurez que Madame le Deputy Gardener est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Monsieur le Deputy Farnham.
Defo.
Monsieur le Deputy Joseph. Oh, sorry, Madame le Deputy Moore.
The Deputy Moore is out of the island on state's business.
Could you explain the nature of the business, sir?
Yes, she's attending a Women in Leadership conference as a female head of government in Rwanda.
Thank you. Deputy Moore is away on state's business.
Monsieur le Deputy Joseph.
Malad.
Vous jurez que Monsieur le Deputy Joseph est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Madame le Deputy Poiret.
Sir Deputy Poiret is out of the island on a trip which was booked before we knew that the States would be sitting this afternoon. She is back in time for what was originally scheduled to be the States sitting from tomorrow, so would it be possible for her to be marked excused on that basis?
Members agree the deputy may be marked excused? Yes, excusez. Les états sont constitués. I'd like to pay a few words of tribute to a recently deceased member. John Pierre Vernon Fall, known as John, recently passed away in his 96th year. He joined the family business at Falls Motor Works, and by the early 1960s, the company's activities included car sales, repair and fuel sales over 3 sites in Jersey, and the company set up Falls Hire Cars to cater visitors to the island. He topped the poll in St Saviour, returning as a deputy in November 63, and served 2 terms of office, leaving the Assembly in 1969. He served on the Social Security Committee and was appointed to the Sewerage Committee in 1964 and was re-elected to both boards in 1966. During his time in the States, Deputy Fall petitioned the States Assembly to improve traffic safety around St Luke's School and Platdewey School, including installation of pedestrian crossings. He retired from the States in 1969. During the 70s and 80s, Falls Hire Cars became the largest car hire business in the Channel Islands, as members will, I'm sure, recall, running a fleet of up to 2,000 cars in the height of the season and setting up branches, including at Southampton Airport, to cope with demand. With the change in holiday trends, the business began to decline, and the Falls Hire Car fleet was wound down and sold in 2003. Mr. Fall passed away at home, and our thoughts are with his wife, their children, and their 10 grandchildren. I invite members to stand and observe a short silence. May he rest in peace. Moving to the consolidated order paper. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B. A number of matters have been presented or laid under C. In respect of lodged propositions, in respect of P17, La Collette Waste Management Site Development Plan, an amendment has been lodged on the 11th of July by Deputy Alex Curtis. P47, whistleblowing introduction of legislation. An amendment was lodged on the 11th of July by the Minister for Social Security. P52, support for parents of babies needing additional neonatal care. An amendment was lodged on the 11th of July by the Minister for Social Security. And in respect of P53, negotiation of purchase for the site of Seaside Cafe, Greb de Lec. An amendment was lodged on the 11th of July by Deputy Stevenson. And P54, the draft Financial Services Amendment of Law Number 6 regulations were lodged on the 7th of July by the Chief Minister. Nothing under E. In respect of F, I've received correspondence from the Connétable of St Clement advising of his resignation from the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. There is nothing under G or H. There are a number of written questions under I. And we now come to oral questions.
Sir?
Yes.
Sorry, sir, I didn't know when to raise this issue, and I didn't want to do it during roll call because the states are not constituted, but I'd just like to say how disappointed I am that the Chief Minister's not here today with us, and I don't know quite when I get the opportunity to say that.
Have you just said it? Or do you want to say more? This is probably your chance.
I don't know, sir. I just wanted to say that I was surprised. I can't think this is a matter of security or an emergency, and I'm informed that the Chief Minister didn't know about this until after the last sitting, which is less than a fortnight ago. And I just wonder if it's state's business, how important it can be.
I should remind members that in relation to declarations of state's business, the Assembly has no discretion. They are simply recorded by the greffier as required under Standing Order 53.2. Yes, Deputy Iyer.
So am I raised the defo on Deputy Farnham?
Members content the defo should be raised. Yes, the defo is raised on Deputy Farnham. We now move on to oral questions. There are 20 oral questions today, which is slightly more than usual, so I will let members know when we are halfway through the allocated period. And the first question, Deputy Andrews will put to the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, or at least the person representing that Minister today. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise which sectors have been most affected by increasing costs during his time in office and detail what support, if any, he or his department have provided to these sectors?
Thank you, sir. And
yes.
As the Minister is not in the Assembly, I will answer this. Over the last 12 months, the costs of several key inputs to businesses, including labour and materials, have increased rapidly. The effect this has had on business profitability has varied both within sectors and across them. The most recent Business Tendency Survey, published in April this year, reveals that in terms of profitability, the outlook on hotels, restaurants and bars, and on hotel and restaurant sectors was largely negative. The outlook amongst construction and other business sectors are slightly less negative, and the finance sector was moderately positive, likely reflecting higher interest rates. Businesses in all sectors are able to access support and advice through Jersey Business, which is funded by government and which provide services such as resilience planning and expert one-to-one support and advice. The Department of the Economy has provided support to various sectors of the economy. It has increased the amount of financial funding to rural and marine sectors, and it is currently working on a visitor economy strategy to address the challenges facing that sector.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Could the Minister confirm how much financial support has been granted to Jersey businesses across all sectors?
Yes, sir. The core grant for Jersey business in 2023 was increased to 1.56 million.
Harbison-Hellier.
Thank you, sir. Could the Assistant Minister explain how closing the customer-facing arm of Visit Jersey would possibly have improved the ability of hospitality and tourism to cope with the current conditions? Would it not be better for the department to be considering reopening a tourism office so that we can actually provide a service to those tourists we do have and encourage them to get more out of their stay in Jersey?
Thank you, sir. It is my understanding that the tourism arm of Visit Jersey, or the tourism arm in the bus station, was provided by Visit Jersey, which, as an arm's length organisation, is empowered to make its own decisions. That being said, the government is working on a new visitor economy strategy and looking at the future ways to engage with tourists and islanders, both in person and through other social means, is being explored.
Supplementary, please.
Yes.
Could the Minister explain what happened to the previous tourism strategy that was, I understand, prepared previously, where that has gone, are we going to see it, and when are we going to see the new version?
I'm afraid, sir, I don't have the specifics as to when the tourism strategy, the former tourism strategy came out. This is a visitor economy strategy, and I believe we are expecting to see progress throughout 2023 as aligned to the ministerial delivery plan.
Thank you. College Harbison-Saviour.
Thank you, sir. The Assistant Minister is no doubt aware of rising costs across the board in the island. People can indeed cut back on luxuries. One luxury people cannot cut back on is food. Is the Assistant Minister's department working on a plan by where they can keep costs as low as possible and prevent as many people having to go to food banks? Thanks.
Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. It hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, a policy to look at over-regulation and control within the food supply chain. That said, the department, in the work of the rural economy team, is incredibly focused on thinking about food security and how we can better provide food for ourselves. And as such, the Rural Initiatives team has had an increasing focus on funding smallholders, who we hope to see will become a greater part of the food supply chain in Jersey.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, in the sectors that he referred to as being having a negative or slightly negative outlook, has the availability of staff been a factor in the increased costs, i.e. having to pay more for the staff that are available and simply not run full-time provision in some of the industries? Hospitality springs to mind, obviously, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I believe we are hearing from many areas across the economy that the availability of staff is creating both inflationary pressures and pure ability to pressures on providing the core service of offerings.
Yes.
No.
Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. In his answer, the Minister quoted a figure that's been given to Jersey Business, but it doesn't answer the actual question, sir, which is to state how much money his department has provided to the sectors that have suffered the most. Could the Minister answer that question, please?
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned in my initial answer, the pressures to industry are faced variably both within industry and across industry. We provide financial support within the rural economy and the marine economy, and as I mentioned in my original answer, support for industry is supported through our arm's length organisations and largely non-financial.
Thank you, sir. Does that mean that the Assistant Minister has not provided any financial aid to these sectors?
So, as far as I'm aware, we provide the services of Jersey Business and Digital Jersey, for example, We are not actively funding sectors that the Deputy might be thinking about, such as construction, but we are, as an economics unit, tightly looking into that to work out how we can better be prepared to support the larger economy.
Honourable Brillard.
Thank you, sir. And following on from the question of the Connétable St Helier, would the Assistant Minister agree that a tourism office is absolutely essential, given the age demographic of the sort of visitors that we're dealing with at this point? And so it's all very well suggesting it's part of the next policy, but would he agree that a temporary solution would be utilising a pop-up shop, should we say, in the middle of St Helier?
Thank you, sir. And I think the challenge around the tourism office provided was not one just of the location, but it was actually of the prioritisation of staffing. Personally, though, I do agree that having a presence within town for our visitor economy is important, and I do believe things are underway to look at how we can better provide a kind of a cohesive and joined-up experience to visitors on Ireland, where they can understand the offering from a tourism function. So I do support the principle, sir.
Yes.
And would the Assistant Minister agree that not all visitors are online and need to be able to talk to someone physically? Thank you, sir.
I would agree with that statement, sir.
Deputy Farnham.
Thank you, sir. Whilst the Assistant Minister will know that high inflation is often due to external factors and therefore not totally under our control, sir, but there are some ways we can impact upon it. The previous anti-inflation strategy group produced a report with 6 action points on. Does he know if any of those action points, sir, which were aimed at local ways that we could locally reduce inflation, have been implemented?
Deputy Curtis.
Sir, I would apologise, but no, I wouldn't be able to answer that specific question. But I'm sure we'd be happy to circulate back when we have the nearest availability.
Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. I think Deputy Tadyer and I have previously suggested that perhaps the tourist office could be amalgamated with the Jersey Museum, and I just wondered if perhaps the Deputy Minister would be kind enough to convey that feeling to whoever he needs to. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I will absolutely do that. I think there are many innovative ways of getting on-the-ground, in-person contact for tourists and locals looking to understand the offering on Jersey alike, and I will convey that.
Deputy Andrews, final supplementary?
Yes, please, sir.
Yes.
Can the Minister confirm whether the Department for the Economy have granted funds to certain businesses who are no longer operating?
I can't confirm it at this point in time to that statement, no, sir.
Thank you. The second question, Deputy Catherine Curtis will ask of the Minister for Social Security. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. When a determining officer allocates a repayment plan to a Jersey parent of young children, and all payments of income support therefore stop with immediate effect, what consideration is given to the circumstances of the children and the impact on them in such cases?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm disappointed by the implication in this question that children could be placed at risk as a result of a repayment plan under the income support system. The further implication that a repayment plan automatically stops payment of income support is factually incorrect and is therefore misleading, although I'm sure that was not the Deputy's intention. The question suggests that the entire value of a parent's income support benefit is exhausted by making repayments. In reality, the only situation in which this might occur is if the household has other significant income and the income support claim is topping up that income with a low weekly amount. In that example, the household would continue to have its own income outside any income support payment. A recipient of income support may agree to forego the whole of a small weekly top-up in order to repay an overpayment of benefit that was previously received. In that event, the impact on any children in a household would likely be minimal, as the reduction in total income would be small. Officers working in customer and local services will always consider the impact of repayment plans on the welfare of children. Income support repayments are set by taking into account individual household circumstances and the ability to repay. That is a policy. I'm aware that the Deputy has been in contact with the Department in respect of a specific income support case with very different characteristics. I would urge members to contact me or Deputy Ferry directly in respect of individual cases where they have concerns. Inevitably, the details of individual cases cannot be discussed in public. I can reassure members that the safeguarding of children is always given a high priority in any income support decisions. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. I can assure members that there are cases where income support is stopped completely. Can the Minister detail the support measures and consideration given to families with young children, which has just been alluded to? Can the Minister detail these, please?
Minister.
Sir, I disagree with the Deputy. Income support does not stop because of a repayment plan. There are many circumstances that come into play when income support ceases, and that can be any number of reasons, but it's not just because of a repayment plan. I'm not quite the households with children will continue to receive income support where they need it. Child benefits are taken into I'm just trying to check. So, allowances are made for every child in a household, and single parents also receive an extra single parent allowance. Children are supported through the income support system. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. I'm delighted to know that cases I've seen in the past were merely a figment of my imagination. Sir, could I ask the Minister if at any point when repayment plans are put to income support claimants, that any calculation is done to work out whether the imposition of that repayment plan would put that household with children into what in Jersey would be considered relative low income or relative poverty?
So repayment plans are negotiated with the family on a case-by-case basis, and the interests of children will always be given high priority.
Sir, that wasn't anything close to approaching an answer to my question. Could I have an answer to my question before posing a supplementary?
Yes. So can I ask the Deputy to repeat his question?
Yes.
My question was very specific about whether, when those repayment plans are put together, the question of whether that plan would put a household into relative poverty is specifically considered.
Yes.
So the income and ability of a family to continue to meet their expenses will always be part of that discussion. I don't know whether relative poverty, as the Deputy suggests, is taken into account. As I say, plans are negotiated and discussed with the adults of the household, and it's for them to discuss, to agree with the Department, a plan that they feel meets their needs. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. It's not much of a negotiation when one side doesn't have a real choice in the matter. Could the Minister confirm that now that I've raised the issue of repayment plans pushing people into relative poverty, that she will give that matter its due consideration and investigate with her officers whether this can be considered a factor that is compulsory to consider to ensure that because of issues in the department that people are not pushed into relative poverty whilst paying back income support that may have perfectly accidentally been overpaid beforehand?
Sir, I will ask the question of my department, but whether or not whether we adopt it as a policy. Repayments can arise through a number of means, for a number of reasons, and it is appropriate that repayments overpayments are repaid because that is fair to all other benefit recipients who don't receive overpayments, and also to the taxpayer who funds our income support system. Thank you.
Thank you. Lady Southern.
Yes, sir. Is it not the case, does the Minister or the Minister state, that the minimum claim for a repayment plan on a overpayment is a minimum of £3 per day, and there is no upper limit on the amount that can be claimed? It could be £40 a week out of your benefit. And I would just like the Minister's opinion.
Minister.
Sir, the guidelines specify a sum of £3 a day, but those are guidelines only, and every repayment plan is considered taking the needs of the family into account. They're, as I keep saying, they're negotiated on a case-by-case basis.
And the second half of the question, and that there is no upper limit on the amount that can be claimed.
There is an upper limit to the extent that we will not negotiate a repayment plan that a customer simply cannot afford.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister to confirm whether or not there are any families in the UK, in Jersey, or certainly some in the UK, in Jersey, who, due to a repayment being made, are accessing food banks? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I don't have that information. I'm not sure how I would get the information. It's very difficult. We've tried very hard to get data and details about food bank use, and it has proved to be enormously difficult. We have tried to, we launched a survey sometime last year where we asked food banks to put a leaflet in people's bags. We had very small returns to that survey. We tried to make it as simple as possible, and we simply did not get any sufficient responses to draw any meaningful conclusions. We work very closely with food banks, but they also seem to be very, they don't collect data in the way that would be useful for it. All we get from them generally is anecdotal evidence. They do not capture data and numbers and reasons why people are using food banks, so I simply cannot answer that question. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. It's interesting that the Minister cannot answer the question of whether children are having to access food banks because of repayments, sir. But at the same time, sir, the Minister is saying that they assess every case as to whether the repayments are affordable. So to me, sir, it cannot be both of those things. Can I ask the Minister whether or not the Department will confirm whether families will have to access a food bank to continue before they set a repayment? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
I'm not sure. I don't think that's part of our... I don't think whether people have to access food bank is part of the discussion. The discussion's about whether the family can afford the repayment plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Curtis, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is that there's only discussion of repayments when the person appeals that. But I go back to my question from before. Could the Minister detail the support measures and consideration given to families with young children in these circumstances?
Minister.
So I'm sorry, the question had various elements to it. As I say, the income support system is there to support families. Families are supported through the income support, and I'm not quite sure what else the Deputy wants me to say. We have no other, I'm not quite sure what else she thinks I have in the toolbox. Sorry, I've remembered the first point of our question. Repayment plans are not just calculated when people appeal. When a repayment arises, we write to the person involved, we set out the nature of the overpayment, and we set out our calculation of the repayment. The person will then may then come forward and agree the repayment plan. They do not need to appeal to do that. But children are supported through the income support system like all other families. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The third question, Deputy Scott will ask of the Chief Minister.
Will the Chief Minister advise what process or criteria or prioritisation she uses to determine the circumstances in which she considers it acceptable to be absent from a States meeting, including whether any such process also takes into account the potential absence of the Deputy Chief Minister from the same meeting?
Deputy Gorse, are you answering this question?
Yes, indeed, sir. Thank you. It has always been the case that from time to time, members across the Assembly are absent on days when the Assembly is sitting. That, of course, includes ministers who may be absent on States business representing the island or for other reasons. In this instance, the Deputy Chief Minister is away on a long-planned absence, and the Chief Minister was unexpectedly invited to attend the Women Deliver 2023 conference in Rwanda as a female head of government. The Chief Minister makes her decisions based on what she and her advisers consider to be in the best interests of Jersey.
Supplementary?
Sir, I don't believe that actually answers my question. I'm asking about process or criteria in order to make such a decision. Just saying that it's on the basis of advisers isn't enough.
So what aspect of your question do you not think was responded to by Deputy Gorst?
The bit that mentions process or criteria, the criteria.
Yes. Do you want to address that, Deputy Gorst, insofar as you haven't
Indeed,
already?
happy to do so. So I thought it was quite clear that the Chief Minister makes her decisions based on what she believes is in the best interests of Jersey. And I believe that her decision to travel to this conference is in the best interests of Jersey, sir.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Will the rapporteur state whether the long-planned absence includes a long-planned absence on a States meeting day? Tomorrow.
Deputy Gorst.
As far as I'm aware, it does. So I'm not quite sure of the Deputy Chief Minister's return to the island, but he is away with his family, having come to the end of their examinations. And as members will know, during the course of the Deputy Chief Minister's presence in this Assembly, he has very infrequently, if at all in the past, missed an Assembly sitting.
Supplementary?
Would the rapporteur inform members whether or not this long-planned absence does cover a States meeting day, i.e. tomorrow?
Deputy Gorst.
So I think I just answered that.
Yes, I think you did answer that. Yes, Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. It's my belief, sir, that backbenchers only get few opportunities to question the Chief Minister in public, and those happen most frequently during questions without notice. The Deputy Minister says that the Chief Minister thinks it's in the best interests of the island for her to go away, but would he not agree with me that it's in the best interests of the island for her to stay in where she's elected and answer questions from backbenchers?
Deputy Gorst.
So let's be clear. The Chief Minister is Chief Minister of Jersey at the will of this Assembly, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. She is still Chief Minister. She is still performing and making decisions in the best interests of Jersey. The reality is, of course, like many other places around the globe, we also have this process in place where somebody can act on island in the head of government's absence. It's quite clear to me, sir, that this is a Women Deliver conference. 2023, it takes place every 3 years. It's an honour that the Chief Minister has been invited and that Jersey is being represented by the Chief Minister. I think we would all agree, sir. It is far better that the Chief Minister goes there and I make not very good job at answering questions than I go there and she stays here and answers questions, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. And I don't dispute that the Chief Minister may well be doing a good job on behalf of the island in Rwanda, but can I ask the Deputy whether it's necessary for the Chief Minister to be absent this afternoon? This conference lasts all week. The state sitting is going to last all week. Was there not a compromise situation that could have been found here?
Deputy Gorst.
Well, so we can always find compromises. The Chief Minister travelled over the weekend in her own time. That meant that she could be there for the opening ministerial forum in which she was able to participate and speak, and I think that that was the right choice.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. As the acting Chief Minister, rapporteur, I'm not quite sure what to say, has said that an assessment has been made that this particular trip is in the best interests of Jersey, and that's an assessment he agrees with. Could he explain to the Assembly what benefits are expected out of this particular trip and what the outcomes will be for my constituents and the constituents of the rest of the Assembly?
Deputy Gorst.
So as the Deputy knows, diplomacy is an art form, and building relationships and representing Jersey in the diplomatic field can, but not always, have those tangible sort of outcomes that she is indicating. However, I can confirm that the Chief Minister has made good progress in regard to the BIT negotiation and moving that forward with Rwanda, and got a shortened timescale in that regard. She's also got commitments from the Finance Minister of Poland about an updating to our double taxation agreement. All of those might sound slightly strategic, but ultimately they give direct benefit to all islanders and all of her constituents.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. My understanding is a number of people are attending this particular conference online, and also, as we are aware, people do a lot of work now online and remotely. So why was the decision taken that the Chief Minister could not have these conversations at another time and could not participate in this particular conference remotely?
Deputy Gorst.
So having attended such international events, both online and in person, I can absolutely say without a shadow of a doubt that the benefit to Jersey is far greater when one is sitting, standing, face to face, and communicating directly with individuals as opposed to simply across a computer screen.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. In answer to a question from Deputy Southern, Deputy Gorst seemed to suggest that he... I went to his listening. Deputy Gorst seemed to suggest that he didn't know when the Deputy Chief Minister was due to be returning to the island. Given that Deputy Gorst is serving as Acting Chief Minister because both the Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister are away, does he mean to suggest that he doesn't know how long he's Acting Chief Minister for?
Deputy Gorst.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, hopefully as little and short a time as possible. And I'm sure, sir, that you and every member of this Assembly is hoping the same from the tenor of the questions. As I understand it, I will be Acting Chief Minister until the end of Thursday. What I can't quite recall is whether the Deputy Chief Minister returns to the island then, or it is the Chief Minister, but it's one or the other, and he will be shut of me in this role, sir.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. As chair of the CPI, I have no problem with people attending in-states business. However, I will ask a question about prioritisation of Mr. In-states assemblies. Given that, sir, there are some significant pieces of some significant propositions coming through about collect waste and landlord licensing, which I will note, sir, lost by one vote last time it was brought to this Assembly. Does the acting Deputy Assistant Chief Minister Rapporteur... Sorry, I've lost track of what the terminology is. Does that acting person feel that perhaps this prioritisation wasn't taken into account? Thank you, sir.
Deputy Gorst.
So I think that was a question to someone else.
Thank you, sir. So indeed it was, but unfortunately they're not here. So the question, a serious question about prioritisation is there. Does the Council of Ministers consider when a piece of legislation coming forward from ministers within the Council of Ministers is being brought forward, if two voting members of this Assembly are missing, is that really the way to lead the island, sir? Is that a better way to do things?
Yes, Deputy Gorst.
So, of course, those issues are part of the consideration before any minister decides to take up in this instance a unique invitation which was offered to the Chief Minister to represent Jersey in this positive way. The Chief Minister has, I think, confidence, and I hope this is borne out, in the work that ministers are bringing before the Assembly at this sitting, that there will be sufficient support for those proposals.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. And further to my party leader's question about how long he will be acting as Chief Minister, is it not the case that the Deputy has already been acting as Chief Minister for 1 year now? And that the actual answer is that he's going to be acting for another 3 years?
Was that a question?
It is, sir, and I think it's, with all the laughter, sir, it's a political question.
Yes. Yes, Deputy Gorse.
So, as the Deputy knows, there is a lot of acting involved in politics, and he is a fine example, a fine example of it, sir. I learn my lessons from him. The reality is, sir, that I am honoured that this Assembly voted for me to be the Treasury Minister in this government, and that's a job I take very seriously, and I hope to continue to serving this Assembly in that role for the remaining 3 years.
Final supplementary, Deputy Scott.
So could I just point out I didn't have my first supplementary because I was asking a point of clarification and you went immediately to Deputy Southern.
Well, I thought that because you effectively did get an answer to the question, you were effectively answering the same question twice. But in any event, it's now your final supplementary. Do you have a question to ask?
Yes, I just wondered if the acting Chief Minister, who was the uncontested Treasury Minister, who also is acting as External Relations Minister, perhaps today, I'm not sure. But anyway, if he knows, because given that we all gave an oath to attend states meetings, and given the title of the conference, Women Deliver, whether he knows if the Chief Minister will be explaining how exactly she's delivering as Chief Minister by not being here, not attending question time, not being here for the propositions that are being brought before the States Assembly, and whether she might have considered other options such as another female minister taking her place, given what I do believe is the importance of her position.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Gorst.
Seriously, I have no doubt that the Chief Minister weighed these issues carefully, because the point about the Chief Minister being on questions without notice at every state sitting is a well-made point. The Chief Minister balances, and I support her in this decision, what is in Jersey's best interests, and I believe that her attendance at this prestigious conference of female leaders from around the globe, not only from government but charities and civil society organisations, is a terribly important one, and it is one that the Chief Minister is uniquely in a position to show off Jersey in a very positive light. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth question, the Connétable of St Brelade will put to the Minister for Children and Education. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Will the Assistant Minister outline his policy regarding the teaching of French in island schools and advise whether he'll be considering employing French assistants, as in the past?
Connétable.
Thank you, sir. French is the first name language. French is the first name language in the Jersey curriculum. The curriculum describes learning a language as the liberation from insularity and an opening to other cultures. As such, the teaching of French across island schools continues to be a priority. French is the first language taught after English in all our government primary schools for pupils aged 7 to 11. I am happy to confirm that we certainly employ a number of language assistants who are deployed to secondary schools across the island in line with the languages chosen at GCSE and A-level. There are currently 2 Spanish and 1 French assistants in this position, working across 5 schools. In addition, we have a long-standing and valued relationship with Alliance Française, who provide additional French assistance hours to schools, which are funded from the education budget. This year, this has increased to 34 hours of teaching per week and a budget of more than £40,000. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. There seems to be some doubt as to whether this support is being provided to the Alliance Française, and I would just like the Assistant Minister to agree that starting children's exposure to other languages, especially that of our nearest neighbour, is so important, not only in cultural terms, but also commercial terms, given that these children may well be the business people of the future.
Thank you, sir. I'm a little surprised at that question because I have already confirmed that in primary schools French is taught to all children. In a secondary school it's taught in the first year, and then children have an option of choosing a language. Should they wish to specialise in French, they can opt for French. But they can opt for many other languages, which may, in their opinion, be equally important. So we haven't forgotten the importance of French, and that is demonstrated by the fact that it is the primary language that we speak, that we teach in primary schools. However, we do have a more diverse island now, and I think that's important to recognise. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Assistant Minister if it is a stated aim in their policy on this to improve the proficiency of French speaking among Jersey's young people going through our education system, given the importance there is to the island's culture and heritage and, of course, our links with our nearest neighbour? And if that is the stated policy of the Education Department, how do they measure the success of that policy and whether the proficiency of French speaking among Jersey's population is improving or not?
Thank you, sir. I haven't got anything in front of me that actually says it's the stated aim. However, I would have hoped from what I've already said that it is a genuine aim of the Children and Education Department, in that we put the most resources into teaching French, in that we teach other languages that are not taught in primary schools, nor in the first year of secondary education. If he wishes to get confirmation of what is the stated aim, then I'm happy to get that for him.
Supplementary?
Thanks. So the second part of the question was about how, if at all, they measure whether or not that policy is a success and whether we are seeing improved proficiency at French speaking in our population. Other jurisdictions that have stated aims on language teaching, like the Manx language in the Isle of Man or the Welsh language in Wales, they have their ways of measuring how many more people are able to speak because of that. So could the Assistant Minister outline whether that exists in Jersey for the French language?
Sorry, again, sir, I don't have that information in front of me, so that is something that I would have to get for the Deputy.
Would the Assistant Minister confirm how the number of assistants for French in primary schools compares with what it used to be only a number of years ago, including what the funding difference is for that?
Thank you, sir. I know specifically about the additional assistance we had from the Alliance Française, and I believe previously they were funded for an amount of £60,000. So there has been a reduction in the number. I don't actually have that detail in front of me, I do know that the amount that we have given you, however, that's been replaced in schools by the French experience, in which, and that's been taken up by 19 out of the 24 government primary schools who have delivered the French experience programme, where they've been supported by French specialist teachers to develop and consolidate the teaching of French across the school. So that is where the budget previously paid to the Alliance Française, the additional £20,000 is being spent.
Thanks, sir. I might be wrong, but my recollection is that the French experience used to run parallel to the language assistance, and that the language assistance budget was removed ostensibly during COVID, and it simply wasn't replaced. So I would ask the Minister to go back and check what he's just told me. But if I could ask, sir, a supplementary, which is on the same theme, the Assistant Minister will know that our Assembly is a member of the Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie. One of its aims isn't just to promote French speaking, but it's also to promote multilingualism, both for the Assembly and for wider society. Does the Assistant Minister agree that for many in this Assembly and in wider society, it is seen as regressive that a second language, full stop, is no longer compulsory at GCSE? Does he share that concern that maybe a second language at GCSE should be reinstated? And if so, what kind of resources might be needed in order to get our education system back to that point?
So there will certainly a second language can be very beneficial. However, there will be some students whose interests don't necessarily include speaking a second language, and who have decided on careers where they don't consider that necessary, but other qualifications are necessary. And I think we give our students the option of either speaking French, another language, or if they don't feel that languages are for them and they want to pursue another career, then they can opt not to do a language. And I think that is an entirely valid way of teaching. We are still promoting languages, but we're giving children the option, if that doesn't suit their career or their future career, that they don't have to undertake a second language. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Constable Brunel, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Would the Assistant Minister confirm that sufficient funding for the French assistant provision through the Alliance Française will be made in the upcoming government plan to enable the Alliance to survive and continue its valuable work? Thank you, sir.
I'm not aware that there's any suggestion that the current amount paid to the Alliance would be cut. I've already said that's around £40,000 a year. The way in which we spend money has changed. I will check about the French experience, but I acted on information that I was actually only given this morning, because I asked a specific question about what had replaced the French assistance, and I was told it was the French experience. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Constable. The fifth question Deputy Feltham has for the Chair of the States Employment Board. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chair provide an update on the public sector pay groups that have yet to accept the pay offer for 2023?
Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I can confirm that all public service employee groups have accepted the fully consolidated 7.9% pay award, except for nurses, teachers and school leadership groups. We continue our discussions with the nurses, with a further meeting scheduled for Friday. Head teachers are currently within a process of conciliation, and the teachers' groups have both confirmed to the State Employment Board that they will not currently enter arbitration.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could the Vice Chair confirm what percentage of the workforce that represents that hasn't yet settled on pay for 2023?
Vice Chair.
I have to do the sums on my feet, sir. So I will get back to the Deputy so that we get an accurate figure. But we have around 1,500 members haven't accepted out of a total workforce of 9,000 employees. I will confirm later today.
Thanks, sir. I may not be able to recollect the exact words, but I seem to remember the Deputy Chair saying that there was no more money available on the table. So what is it exactly that the government or the SEB is negotiating with at the moment?
Vice Chair.
So we continue our dialogue. So we have, as I've mentioned many times in the Assembly, quarterly meetings with all the representative groups. And in fact, it wasn't part of the pay claim for us to review terms and conditions of teachers. We agreed to do that in one of those quarterly meetings, which the work for that is underway. If we can identify savings with those groups, then that will create cash. But at the moment, sir, the 7.9% is the money on the table.
Just to clarify, any increase in the offer, in the 7.9% offer, he's saying can only come from savings that those staff would have to find within their areas. Is that correct?
That's not correct, sir. I said we'd have to find the savings. I didn't say specifically to that group. So we continue to offer, and it's worth noting, sir, that the pay is just one part of an employee's package, sir. We offer generous terms and conditions across our area. I've mentioned recently about the 1 year's parental leave that we now offer. We offer, in terms of teachers, final salary pension schemes, the only group amongst our employees to have that. And so we offer good terms and conditions and secure employment.
Thank you. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Chair of SEB, will this negotiation include the ubiquitous gain share concept, where money has to be saved in order to get a pay rise? And does also, as part of the other areas that you mentioned, the 1 year's leave, will you confirm that that's unpaid parental leave? Thank you, sir.
Vice Chair.
So the parental leave is costing us the equivalent of 2.8% on our teachers' salaries because we have to pay people to cover those shifts. We pay for some of the leave, not for the full year, obviously. So there is a cost to that. And the terms and conditions review was agreed as part of a 2019 pay deal. We were made aware of that in May, and we agreed to set to work on that as soon as possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So in a written question I received an answer to today, the Education Department, sir, is spending £313,830 since January on UK supply staff. Does the Minister believe that this is a use of money that could be stopped if a proper pay rise was and this dispute could be ended? Thank you, sir.
Vice Chair.
So we are looking at right across government employees to reduce the amount of people we have on short-term contracts, whether they be based locally or based in other jurisdictions. So the shortage of STEM teachers is not just a local issue, it is a national issue, and we are working hard to try and find resolutions in that area. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Feltham. Final question.
Thank you, sir. Given this significant percentage of the workforce that has yet to settle, and given that they are incredibly important frontline workers, what lessons have been learned from this negotiation this year, and what changes will be made next year, given that we're now into the 6th month of protracted negotiations for 2023?
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. We are looking at putting into place a pay strategy for multiple years, but we are looking first of all to resolve this dispute, which is actually in its 7th month of discussion, unfortunately. We're always learning lessons, sir, but in my experience, negotiation is a two-way street, and at the moment we've not been able to convince our colleagues to reduce their initial demands of over 15%. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Question 6, Deputy Luce will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. Further to all, question 73 of this year, will the Minister list which of the new sporting facilities at La Rocchia School will be provided for in this year's government plan?
Minister.
So I wonder if I could be permitted to hand this question on to Deputy Stevenson, who's she's the Assistant Minister with responsibility for healthcare facilities.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, sports facilities, sir. Yeah.
Yes. Assistant Minister.
Apologies, sir.
Thank you, sir. Jersey Property Holdings, Jersey Sport and Sipes are still working with La Rocchia School to reach a final agreement on the options to take forward. This comes in the wake of accepting that the initially proposed figure of £70 million for a comprehensive Eastern Sports Centre was not going to be available. The final sum to be attributed to the facilities at the school is still under discussion, so it's not possible at this stage to identify the facilities in detail, although it is likely to focus on a 3G pitch and extension of the current sports hall. The figures will be published in September as soon as the government plan discussions on capital projects have been finalised.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. The current sports hall is very old and has many, many defects. Built in the 70s, it's had few upgrades since then. The disability access is poor, very poor, non-compliant with current standards. Girls' changing rooms are upstairs and there's no lift. I just want to guarantee from the Minister, given that this building is currently not fit for purpose, that she will do this work in this year's government plan.
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. I've visited the building myself and have seen many of the problems that the Deputy outlines there, and I'm sure there are others that I could add to that as well. The reason for moving forward, as I have explained in a previous question, in this manner was because I absolutely want to see this work progress, and for me and for others around the table, the way to ensure that we could deliver for the school, which is the immediate priority, is to reframe this work into something that is achievable in the current climate and current situation with other pressures around capital projects. Hence why this project has now been handed over, as it were, to Sipes with others working with them. That's all I can really say at this stage because it is out of my hands and I am not involved in the ongoing discussions about them. Those questions would perhaps be better directed at the Education Minister.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. In the answer, the Assistant Minister mentioned that Jersey Sport were involved in the decision-making process over this facility. Can I ask the Minister what their role is in making that decision? Thank you, sir.
Assistant Minister.
A member of staff from Jersey Sport works within the infrastructure department as part of the Inspiring Active Places project and offers project support on these kind of things. A lot of work has been done with Jersey Sport and then through the Inspiring Active Places project looking at sports needs and requirements around the island, and this individual is seen as an expert in that area.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you, sir. Given that Jersey Sport would have a particular idea of the way that sports should look across the island, is one of the issues that the specific needs for the Rocchia School, a state school on the east of the island, may not be seen as clearly, given that this is an arm's length organisation with different drivers in terms of its outcomes. Thank you, sir.
Within this piece of work and others around the Inspiring Active Places project, the individual in question's priority is to the island and to the terms of reference as part of that piece of work, not to Jersey Sports priorities. And I would just reiterate that they've been working extremely closely with the school throughout, both in previous incarnations of this project and currently, to ensure that it's absolutely based on the needs of the school and the wants for the future as well.
Monitor Arbison Clement.
Thank you, sir. Assistant Manager, we are surprised at Out East that we're not being given not what was promised, but what's been offered. We've had the carrot of £70 million, £40 million, and now we're seeing that actually what we're doing is replacing old and forgotten sports facilities in education, not new sports facilities as was offered out in the east of the island. would you seek to give us a guarantee that during the next wave of government expenditure, that the East of Ireland will not be forgotten, and the East of Ireland I refer to as St Clements, Grooville and St Martin at the very least, and that we dearly need good, up-to-date sporting facilities for all our generations out east?
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. I have a slight issue in that some of the things that have been previously promised were grand plans but did not have any funding backed to them. They had, at some stages, didn't even have numbers, but they did have pretty pictures. And when it comes to actually delivering on these things, which is the point we're trying to move forward in the East with this project, it then leaves those of us here today in quite a tricky situation. So I very much appreciate that things have been overpromised and under-delivered in the past, which is why I say we have approached this particular project in the way that we have done, because we want to make sure that the needs of the school are met. As the Deputy Luce has shown, there are some real issues there, and it needs to be a priority that this school gets the facilities that it deserves, which is why it's been prioritised as it has.
Supplementary?
Yes, please. Assistant Minister, who will be best to speak to on this? Because it's clear that we've got now 3 of the Treasury Ministers got no money, sir. Who are we supposed to speak to get proper representation on these issues? SIPES, the Education Department, or Jersey Sport?
Assistant Minister.
I think all are very willing to have those conversations, and as we've shown with work on FB Fields not so long ago, there is a want and an interest to look at the opportunities that are available, particularly in the east of the island. And there are facilities around St Clement's Sports Club, for example, that are doing some really great work down there and have ideas for the future. There are other private ones in the east of the island that have plans for the future as well. So engagement and discussion with all stakeholders, including the parish, is very important to all of those people. We've really got to work together to deliver on this. What I would just add to what I've said previously, the world has changed since the grand plans were promised a couple of years ago, and we do have to set a vision and go out to achieve things together, but we've also got to be realistic as well. And we've seen reports from the likes of the CNAG and others about what government can deliver in terms of capital projects, and all of those things have got to be taken into consideration. We are an island 9 by 5, and we've got to be realistic and work together.
Lily Southern.
Thank you, sir. In terms of Jersey sports facilities, to what extent does the Minister have under consideration the possibility that by reducing, or if necessary, reducing to 0, the charge for facilities and spaces that we own, that would encourage the health and fitness objectives of her department? Has she got that under consideration? And if not, why not?
This is the Minister.
Thank you, sir. There are a number of policies already in place which do actually speak to this kind of point around free access and very low price access. For example, certain number of care leavers get free access to the active scheme every year. Some young people, if they have parents already in the scheme, get access as well as lower price points and concessions for certain ages, whether that be young people or old people. So it's very much part of the considerations.
Supplementary?
Supplementary, if I may, sir.
Yes.
Does the answer we just received mean that she has under consideration the possibility of reducing the costs of hiring a hall, etc., or not? Because it wasn't clear to me whether the policies that were in place actually include that, because until recently it was a policy to ramp up the cost of hiring a hall, but that's counterproductive in terms of fitness and health in society. Will the Minister, the Assistant Minister, try and make it clear as to which answer she should.
Thank you, sir. There's a fine balance to strike between ensuring that these facilities can generate some of their own money to ensure that it can be reinvested into the service that's provided and the facilities, as well as recognising them as a public service, exactly as I think the Deputy is suggesting there. And as I say, there are a number of policies already in place, and it's very difficult to explain in 2 sentences. There's not one overarching policy. When it comes to renting halls or fields, for example, some groups, I think around charities and others, but again, there are different arrangements in place for different groups, are given discounts. And then there are different concessions in place for the active scheme as well. There isn't one answer that fits all people, I'm afraid, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Tadia.
Thank you, sir. We've heard about needing to be realistic when it comes to money that's available. I remember when I asked for 1% to be given to the arts and culture in Jersey, I was told that wasn't realistic and it wasn't affordable. But the difference was I think I had a vision which I brought to this Assembly, and the Assembly at the time got on board with that vision. Could the Assistant Minister tell us what her vision is for sport in the east of the island and what it looks like?
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I think I would just point out at this stage that I think I'm a very different politician to the Deputy who asked the question, who I understand brought that move in a certain situation at a certain time. And I want to work collaboratively with my colleagues and actually recognise that government spending is a full package of money. It's not for fighting over amongst ourselves. We have a common strategic policy that all ministers are working towards. My vision for sport in the east of the island in the short term is to push this project in a realistic and achievable way, which means handing it back to SIPES so that schools' priorities can be met. In addition to that, this Assembly agreed a few weeks ago to amend the covenants that govern FB Fields, and we hope that that move will be given approval by the Privy Council later this year. We're currently on track for October, given how busy things are with the Privy Council. I would then like to create a vision around FB Fields, as I set out in that meeting a few weeks ago, around the community and the sport and what is, I think, an exciting opportunity in the East.
So I do have a supplementary, if I may.
Yes.
Let's talk about the £70 million that was proposed, because the £70 million now is much more affordable because inflation has gone up. So we should actually be looking for more than £70 million. Was it not the case that it was a Treasury Minister who was a former deputy of St Clement who promised that money and was supporting that? And that now we have a Treasury Minister who is also a former deputy of St Clement, and I may be mistaken, a governor of La Rocquiere, certainly he has been in the past. And so actually, should it not be the case that whilst we must work collaboratively, I'm sure from a government point of view, that actually a little pressure applied to the Treasury Minister's wallet might find that actually it's the case, not that he doesn't have any money, but that he's maybe been too reluctant to open his wallet up to now for what is essentially still part of the heart of his home constituency.
Assistant Minister.
It felt very much like a question for the Treasury Minister, not for me. I don't really have a view on that at this stage. As I say, all I can do is work with my colleagues collaboratively and try to achieve what I think is realistic and deliverable.
Constable Greville.
Yes, sir, thank you. In support of my fellow Connétable and Deputy Luce, I would just like to state that the sporting facilities in the far east of the island are woefully inadequate in comparison to those in other parts of the island. And I would just encourage the Minister, if I may, and ask her, is this a project at La Rocquiere School solely for the purpose of the pupils therein, or is this going to be open to members of the public in the east of the island? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. Well, the priority is on the school's needs, and the facility will be for the school during the day. The brief that has been provided to those working on the project is that it should then be community use outside of school hours.
Thank Thank you. Final supplementary, Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir, and I'm increasingly concerned by the Assistant Minister's answers. I accept that we live in a changing climate financially, and the world has changed, but the Minister doesn't want to talk particularly about spending money on these facilities at Larocquia and prefers to mention FB Fields and her plans there, and I wonder where the money's coming from. Larocquia was part of, with Springfield and Oakfield, what we were going to do when we closed the fort down. And we know what's happened to Springfield. We know Oakfield isn't even out for tender yet. And now we're faced with the possibility that we may lose funding for Larocquia. Is the Minister satisfied that coming out of the fort was the right decision?
Is the Minister?
This is not a case of losing funding for Larocquia. There was never any funding in the first place. As far as the question around Fort Regent goes, I still believe that the move to decant sport from Fort Regent is the right way to move. I've not seen any evidence at this stage that we could keep people in the fort and do the work around them that is needed. I've read a number of reports which make it clear there are very challenging situations around electrics, plumbing and others, all of which will require work regardless of what it is decided happens at Fort Regent. And as far as I can see so far, recognising that there are others involved in this as well, there is no evidence that it would be right to leave people there in what are currently not fit for purpose from a sporting perspective, facilities, only to try and work around them in the future.
Thank you. Assistant Minister. The seventh question, Deputy Rob Ward will put to the Minister for Children and Education. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I assume it's the Assistant Minister taking the answer?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. In light of the concerns raised by all teaching unions over recruitment and retention, will the Assistant Minister explain whether in his assessments there will be any impact on the delivery of a full curriculum in both primary and secondary schools from September? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Conor.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I do not expect any impact on the delivery of a full curriculum in primary and secondary schools from September. I have no doubt there will be some gaps in roles caused by resignations received in May, but this is quite normal and something the department, head teachers and schools deal with every year. As a former teacher himself, I'm sure the Deputy is aware of this. But for the benefit of others, I will explain. Teachers have 3 dates a year on which they can resign, and these are the last days of February, May and October. In most cases, it is simply not possible to advertise, recruit and have a substantive permanent replacement in place by the start of the next term. In rare cases, we may find a recruit who is not currently working in a school and they have no notice period to work, but in the vast majority of cases, teachers will be working in other schools. As an example, if we are notified of a resignation at the end of May and advertise and offer the appointment by the end of July, a teacher already working in a school would not be able to hand in their notice before October and move to their new role until January the following year. This clearly leaves a gap from September to December that needs covering. And we do this by our use of supply staff, internal cover, and more recently UK supply staff to fill the gaps. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. What the Assistant Minister fails to recognise is that supply staff don't necessarily fit subjects. I will ask him, though, his reference to the UK supply staff. So from 2 questions, and just bear with me for 1 second. From the 1st September to January 2023, last year, there was a total of £35,840 spent on supply staff, with the average cost, that would be 112 days of supply staff. From January to July this year, there was a total of just staffing, not the extra costs, of 226,663 staff, equivalent to 763 days of cover staff. So is the Assistant Minister genuinely saying that by using agency staff who are non-specialists in subjects, there is no threat to delivering a full curriculum to every child on this island? Thank you, sir.
Sir, what I said was that this is something that occurs every year. And to date, we haven't experienced significant problems in ensuring that the curriculum continues. Of course, in most cases, we would want a specialist teacher. That's not always possible. However, that we're aware that there will always be some gaps. There are 30 to 40% reduction in UK recruitment for teacher training in science and maths. This continues to impact recruitment efforts, but initiatives such as the Jersey Graduate Teacher Training Programme are delivering some teachers who can fill these gaps. I would say that the situation this year is certainly on a par with previous years, where there hasn't been a significant problem in filling those gaps.
Antonio.
Is the Assistant Minister, Chief Minister taking into account the potential for industrial action and working to rule not being resolved by September, when he answers Deputy Ward's question about whether the core curriculum can be effectively delivered in September?
Well, of course, that is an unknown at this point. And probably my colleague in the SEB would know more about when potential strikes might hit us. Nevertheless, at whatever point they hit us, they will impact us. And we can only plan on a basis of what we know and what we don't know. And we can't plan on what we don't know.
27.
Thank you, sir. The Assistant Minister sounds, if I may say so, somewhat complacent when saying that this happens every year. The question must be, what special measures, what new initiatives does the Assistant Minister have in mind in order to eliminate or reduce, at least reduce, the situation this time round?
Thank you. The fact of the matter is that we have already explained why there is a gap. Teachers will tend to resign in May. Inevitably, due to that, there will be a gap between September and December. That occurs every year. Every year we've been successful, as far as I know, in recruiting and closing those gaps. So I don't understand why we would need special measures this year.
Supplementary?
We might need special measures because of what the Assistant Minister reported about the dearth of fully trained teachers in the UK. And so the situation is going to be worse. What measures does he have in mind, special measures does he have in mind? For example, perhaps a Jersey bonus for certain subjects where we know we'll have gaps, as he says. What measures is he prepared to take to ameliorate what's happening?
Well, I can only repeat that we don't see the need for any special measures. We've filled these gaps in the past. We have no reason to believe that they will not be filled this year. I spoke to staff on this exact subject this morning, and they do not believe that the situation is very different from any previous year. Yes, there are subjects where it is more challenging. Nevertheless, we have to date been able to fill those posts with the required specialist teachers.
Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Is the Assistant Minister aware of any kind of tracking of impact there may be from those students who end up having teachers who are non-specialists in core subjects, especially? Thank you, sir.
Right, I'm not aware of any tracking. Nevertheless, there have always been, throughout education, there have always been instances where it has been necessary for non-specialist teachers to cover posts. It's regrettable that that occurs on occasions, but to date, I'm not aware of that having caused a significant problem. I'm certainly not aware of any method of tracking that.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. So would the Assistant Minister consider putting in some form of tracking or observation to see if there is actually any impact? Because to say that he's not aware of it when there's no tracking going on is a bit counterintuitive.
Well, like any additional measure, that would need consideration as to its impact, how that tracking would be undertaken. I'm quite happy to put it forward and we can assess whether it's feasible or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Rob Ward, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I just asked the Minister's reassurance for parents out there that their children will not be facing any disruption to their curriculum due to a shortage of staff from September, because he's confident, sir, that those posts will be filled. And perhaps he could give us some sort of estimate on the spend on UK agency staff up until Christmas this year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, given the nature of the question, I'm not quite sure how relevant the spend on staff to December is, and I certainly wouldn't have brought that information with me. So perhaps you could decide whether that is relevant. I can't see how it's relevant to the question.
Sir, can I just say, we've been told that the gaps are plugged by using UK agency staff, and so therefore there was a direct correlation between the number of agency staff being used and how many gaps need to be plugged. It's just simple logic, sir.
Well, the question's about the impact on delivery of a full curriculum. In any event, you can't answer the question, can you?
No, I can't answer the question, sir, and I don't believe it was relevant. Thank you very much.
Well, we've completed 7 of the 20 questions, but more than half the time allotted has now been taken up. Members may wish to bear that in mind. Question 8. Deputy Southern will ask of the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I'll try and do it as quick as I can. Further to the Chief Minister's statement on the 4th of July 2023 that £800,000 in savings had been achieved by changing 0 hours contracts to full-time contracts for a section of the workforce, will she state the titles, grades and departments of the employees concerned, explain how this change achieved those savings, and indicate what proportion of the overall workforce is currently on 0 hours contracts?
Deputy Gorst. Vice Chair.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. Sir, the question is quite complex in as much as I would prefer to supply a written answer to some of the points, but I will try and answer as much as I can. So the workforce use of 0 hours contracts is, in my opinion, far too high. Currently, we have 3,851 0-hour contracts in place, with some 2,000 of those being used in the last 12 months. We are looking to put people on annualised hours rather than 0 hours, where we know that they're only available, for example, within school terms. Perhaps they may work in health, and I think it would be much better if they're on an annualised contract, giving them certainty and giving us certainty as an employer. So having so many people on 0 hours that we aren't using, and in some cases it may be the same person who holds more than one 0-hour contract. They may be on a 0-hour contract for lunchtime assistant and a 0-hour contract for breakfast support. So we know that we're going to have lunch and breakfast. We should be putting these people on contracts of employment which are permanent. So when we're paying for licenses for people, it costs us a lot of money for DBS checks where people aren't actually being used, for licenses, for email addresses, etc., etc. So we have saved some £200,000 by introducing a new system called Optima, which allows for us to roster people 6 weeks in advance rather than going week by week. This is giving us surety and giving the staff surety, and we're looking to further enhance that system as we go forward.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, sir. And I think that may well have answered my question quite accurately. But could the Assistant Minister send me or assure me of the mechanism by which this Optima system works? Because I find it rather difficult to imagine that 0 hours contracts being the cheapest form of employment, that any savings can be made at all by shifting from 0 hours contracts to full-time contracts. Could he guarantee that I get access to the Optima system?
Sir, the Deputy will be second in line after me, sir, to see that system. I'll be happy to share the system with the Deputy. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Rob Ward.
I just wonder whether the Assistant Minister confirmed whether Deputy Gorse is on one of those 0 hours contracts at the moment. That was all. Thank you, sir.
So it would appear that it's not a fixed term contract because we don't know the end date. Thank you, sir.
Right. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. I think many constituents would be interested to know, in response to my written question, there are now 949 vacancies across every government department there is. So what are the State's Employment Board going to do to ensure that payroll expenditure savings will be made moving forward? Thank you, sir.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you, sir. It's a very good question. It's an area that we are looking at. We've put a lot of resource and effort into recruitment and retention, sir. So we've currently advertised reporting on vacancies where that work is being covered by somebody on a 0 hour contract. Where I said earlier, where we can use annualised hours, where we know that somebody is going to be available for 37, 38 weeks a year, we should be putting those people on an annualised contract where we only have to then worry about the 14 weeks. It also gives that person guaranteed income and the ability to join pension schemes, sir.
Thank you. Final supplementary, Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Question 9, Deputy Alves will ask of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain what checks or audits are carried out on companies that submit claims to Revenue Jersey for benefits in kind for their employees? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Benefits in kind are effectively emoluments which are not money, which are not capable of being turned into money. Some are taxable and some are not. Employers file annual returns of the taxable benefits in kind provided to each of their employees. The Comptroller of Revenue tells me that his officers undertake a number of checks on the information provided by employers, which will include comparisons with the tax return of employees to help ensure that benefits in kind are properly taxed. Revenue Jersey also undertakes work to ensure that all taxable benefits in kind are properly declared by employers.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. The Minister mentioned there that it's done on an annual basis. Are there any other checks done throughout the year? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister.
So the department has a revenue compliance strategy, and each year within that strategy there is a compliance programme. 23 compliance programme specifically refers to addressing risks related to benefits in kind at this point around share schemes, and they are currently at the risk assessment stage.
Thank you. Question 10, Deputy Howe will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Howe.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain how contaminated leachate taken from the hazardous waste at La Collette is treated at the sewage works prior to being discharged into St Albans Bay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister.
So the leachate from La Collette is, at the present moment, is taken by tanker to La Collette. The work is underway at the present time to pipe that into a sump so that it can be pumped through the drainage system. And that work isn't complete yet, but it will be ready shortly. Once it arrives, it's discharged into the primary reception area, and it actually runs through the system in the self-same way as standard sewage. And this will mean more to people of a scientific background than it does to me. The first process is actually to remove grit. Then it goes into primary settlement tanks to remove the larger organic particles. Then it goes through an activated sludge treatment, which is a biological treatment phase. It then goes through to settlement tanks to settle out the microorganisms. And then finally, so it's treated with ultraviolet light before discharge into the bay. So.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I was just wondering how how much it is tested on, as it goes out for things like heavy metals and PFAS chemicals and the like. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Minister.
To the best of my knowledge, it's not treated, it's not examined for PFAS content at the moment, nor heavy metals, sir.
Thank you, Minister. Question 11. Deputy Mezek will ask of the Minister of Health and Social Services. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Further to reports that funding from the MND Association for the island's only motor neuron disease specialist nurse will be ending in the next few months, will the Minister advise what actions she will take to ensure that adequate support remains for those affected by this disease?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the Deputy for his question. I've also been approached by the Constable of St Heliers, so if I could, I would reply to both of you on that basis. What I would just like to say is thank you to the MND Association for the continued support of the specialist nurse, and the actions that I will be taking will be to meet with the MND Association after the summer recess to understand what the resource requirements will be for the continuation of the nurse specialist. This nurse specialist is critical in avoiding admissions, and so we want to realise the benefits associated with that contribution. So I've asked the medical care group to continue to work closely with the clinician in post to make sure that individual needs for patients and appropriate care plans are in place in the interim.
Thank you, Minister. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for her answer. It appeared from reports of this that the specialist nurse position would be ending because of the loss of funding. Does the Minister accept that in not committing to any clear action in relation to this specific role now, whilst the government is in the process of putting the government plan together, which will be the place for additional funding for this kind of thing, if necessary, then there's a risk that those actions may occur too late to safeguard this service in the short term? And can she attempt to give the Assembly reassurance that there won't be a gap in service provided to these people?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and I reflect the Deputy's concerns about it, and I will do my utmost to try and protect the resource to this. There is a meeting tomorrow with the Neurology Department to scope out the resource requirement, and I think any consideration of that will be reflected in our planning going forward, but at this stage I can't commit to anything at this moment in time.
Thank you, Minister. Question 12, Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Further to oral question 138 of 2023 and any further discussions with the Fiscal Policy Panel and stakeholders, will the Minister state whether it remains the case that most Jersey mortgage holders have 5-year fixed rate mortgages and are unaffected by UK base rate rises, and that some 4% of households may need to remortgage? Will he advise what proposals in this area the Cost of Living Ministerial Group is pursuing for the government plan?
Minister.
Thank you. So recently the Assistant Chief Minister wrote to the island's banking sector to ensure they match the recent undertakings of UK banks to mortgage holders and offer as much help to islanders with mortgages as possible. Cost of Living Group also continues to monitor that situation. Clearly, as time goes on, then more islanders will be in need of renegotiating their mortgage deals as they come off their older fixed rates. However, as previously reported, islanders were largely cushioned by fixed 5-year terms. It is difficult to know the exact number of mortgages, but with it, it will still likely be low, perhaps 10 to 15% of all mortgages.
Supplementary.
None. Thank you, sir. I think that's answered my question.
Thank you. Celia.
So can we just ask in real terms what 10 to 15% of those mortgages looks like? What numbers of households are we talking affected by this?
Minister.
So I don't have those details with me, but I can certainly, I'm just going to hesitate before I make a commitment. If we have those numbers, I will provide them to the Deputy.
Thank you.
And so I suppose the follow-up is that we know the percentage terms, but even though it's a relatively small number, does he agree that for those households who are facing this issue at the moment, it is going to be particularly worrying for them, and will the assistant, or the minister in this case, make sure that those families are kept in the loop, and any additional support, not just from the banks but from government, that can be given in terms of advice is also offered?
So we absolutely accept that for some families, high interest rates will be difficult because when resetting their mortgage, their monthly payments will or may have substantially increased. The reality is that the best place organisation to support families who are struggling with payments are the banks, and that is why the Assistant Chief Minister wrote in the terms that she did only, I think, about a fortnight ago.
Thank you. Is it your supplementary?
Yes, I got my supplementary at last, sir. Will the Minister assure members that he will continue to act, the government will continue to act as the insurer of last resort, in the sense that help for anyone who needs it with mortgage problems in this current times should be able to turn to the government and not just the mortgage companies themselves?
So I don't think the government should be the insurer of last resort when it comes to mortgages. The appropriate approach is the one that the Assistant Chief Minister has taken, which is government ensuring and keeping in communication and talking to banks so that no family is put in a position where they lose their house because of difficulties with mortgage repayments.
Thank you, Minister. Question 13, Deputy Mezek will ask of the Minister for the Environment. Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain why, given the adoption of Proposal 24 and Policy H6 in the Bridging Island Plan, which provided for an affordable housing contribution on large private developments from January 2023, he has not produced the supplementary planning guidance to give effect to this policy, despite telling the Assembly in January that he would do so in short order?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I very much regret that I've been unable to produce and adopt the supplementary planning guidance which would enable Policy H6 to take effect. This guidance, as the Deputy knows, relates to the delivery of assisted purchase products by the private sector on development sites of 50 or more homes, where at least 15% of the development should be made available for sale or occupation by islanders eligible for assisted purchase housing. Planning applications for private residential development of this scale occurs relatively infrequently in Jersey, but nevertheless, there is a clear and pressing need to ensure that the policy becomes operational. I've been working on the development of this guidance together with the Minister for Housing and Communities, and I will aim to bring it forward by the end of this month. This should then enable Policy H6 to take effect. The reasons for the delay in its introduction are related to a number of factors. The first, I guess, is that the top priority has been on those elements of supplementary planning guidance that will enable the delivery of affordable homes. And this has involved a lot of work to develop new guidance and revise very outdated existing guidance. And it is also vital to inform the preparation of development briefs for the rezoned housing sites in the island plan. And that guidance, supplementary planning guidance, has been on new density standards, revised residential space standards, and revised residential parking standards. And development briefs for the 15 rezoned housing sites have also been produced. So in summary, it's pressure of work on a small team working on many different fronts has meant that not all work has been completed in the timescale that I would have liked.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister if he is aware of any examples of planning applications being made for a development of homes which would otherwise have been caught by Policy H6 but where that policy has not been able to be applied because of the lack of supplementary planning guidance produced, which is now over 7 months late?
Minister.
Yes, I can. Two applications, I believe, fall into that category. One was the South Hill offices, which has in any case been turned down and in any case would have been required to provide 15% of houses because it's a state-owned entity. So that one doesn't really account for this in this terms, although obviously it would have been better if the guidance had been ready. There is one other application that was passed subject to a planning obligation agreement. That was for 61 homes, so it would have triggered across the 50 home threshold, and that would have yielded, were it to have been subject to this, I think something like 9 or 10, yeah, something like 9 or 10 homes.
So it's fair to say that because the minister hasn't, or his department hasn't managed to get this supplementary guidance in time, we've lost nine affordable homes that we would have otherwise had.
Minister.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Deputy Rob Ward.
So I do have
a supplementary, yes.
It is frustrating when a proposition which has been pared back to the very minimum that government will accept for 15%, and then when the Assembly speaks and the sovereignty of this Assembly is not enacted through through circumstances beyond the Assembly's control, what kind of accountability is there, and what, in terms of the minister going back to his department, which he may say is under-resourced, but will there be any accountability or consequence for the loss of those 9 affordable homes because of what is presumably the department's responsibility?
Minister.
So there's 2 points I'd like to make to that. I mean, the first is that, yes, the Assembly did ask for that guidance to be brought forward. It also asked for dozens of other pieces of guidance to be brought forward in that island plan, and indeed other work to be done by the department. And I have to choose which ones to give the greatest priority to. And I gave some indication in my answer earlier about some of the items that I chose to put the greatest emphasis on. They related to affordable housing sites and to supplementary planning guidance that would apply across all categories of housing. These are difficult decisions to make where you have to choose to prioritise resources. And as I say, I'm unhappy that the guidance on this particular area has resulted in one application going through before we're able to do it. The other thing I would say is that I have spoken to officers about this issue, and I think the issue that I find most personally embarrassing, I suppose, is that I did say that I would bring it forward previously and wasn't able to do so. And I think there is something of a culture of over-promising and under-delivering. In other words, if the minister says he wants something, there's a tendency to want to satisfy the minister, and I have made very, very clear to officers that I want realistic assessments of when things can be done so that I can make proper decisions about what order to do them in, and also provide information to this Assembly that is more likely to be met. So that is a conversation that I have had with officers, and they, I think, are very well aware of my opinion about that.
Thank you, Minister. Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. I mean, apart from you changed my question about the British Island plan being passed, needing supplementary guidance that can't be delivered, which is a serious issue. But can I ask the Minister, in his answer, we seem to be using the word minimum 15% as simply 15%. And can I ask the Minister whether he is clear that what was passed is a minimum of 15%? Is he expecting that to be the actual number every time?
Minister.
So I wasn't in the Assembly when this was debated, but my recollection is that the figure of 15% was the result of pushback from the industry that was concerned that it would not be able to deliver sites at all if there was too great a requirement for affordable housing. So inevitably, this is a tension, and we have to try and manage that tension. 15% was the figure that was settled on. I would certainly encourage developers to think of it as a minimum. Whether that's going to be realistically what they feel they are able to do isn't something that ultimately I can control.
Supplementary, sir? So I think this is very important that actually what was passed was the wording a minimum of 15%. And so I remember at the time in the debate that many of us said that that 15% minimum will become 15% full stop. Can I ask the Minister to show some serious leadership in this, because that 15% figure needs to be the bare minimum of 15% if we're actually going to address the affordable housing crisis on the island. So can I please ask him not to water down this minimum 15% and perhaps even look to increase it? Thank you, sir.
Minister. So I've certainly no intention of watering it down. As I say, the question of what is brought forward by developers isn't something I have direct control over, and leadership does require that I try and balance the different requirements, different forces in this equation. We do have to have some regard to what the industry can afford to develop, as well as what we would ideally like to be developed. That's a conversation which I will be continually having, because it is something which I feel very strongly about. We do need more affordable housing. The final point I would make is that there are different definitions of affordable depending on where you are in your life, and so on. And I think we can think about that in terms of the affordability throughout the whole range, not necessarily just houses that fit the strict criteria within this particular policy.
Thank you, sir. And I can't resist asking this particular question. Where is this site and who is the developer?
So I don't think it's a secret. It was went to the planning committee, I think, last meeting, Samuel Lariche House, in Pladouet Road is the house. I don't know the name of the developer. I don't think that's particularly relevant.
Lady Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Given that the government stated 3 areas of relentless focus are supporting islanders with the cost of living, housing and recruitment and retention, and affordable housing is cited as a key component of all of those areas, why has the implementation of this policy not been prioritised?
So the delivery of affordable housing has been prioritised. As I said, it's been prioritised through a number of other supplementary planning guidance and development briefs, which are also vital for affordable housing. In other words, there are many things that we have to do that are vital for the development of affordable housing. There's a long list of them. They're all mandated. The Island Plan gives no guidance on which ones should be the absolute highest priority. That is for me to work out with officers. And some things have unfortunately taken longer to develop. Some of the consultations have been longer. That has taken up more officer time. And some of them have generated a lot of consultation feedback, all of which is analysed, all of which is responded to, and all of which requires officer time to do it. So, as I say, it is a matter of great regret that we haven't been able to get through all of those items before to get to this particular piece of it, of supplementary planning guidance, before an application went through. But as I've indicated, I very much hope that we'll be able to close that gap by the end of this month.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister provide further clarity as to what exactly has been the blocker to the implementation of this policy, and what action he has taken as a Minister in order to mitigate those?
Minister.
Well, sir, to some extent I've answered that in the sense that there isn't a blocker. It's just a question of the workload. But I can give some other indications beyond those supplementary planning guidances and the rezoned housing sites. We're also looking at action around short-term holiday lets, for example, which is a key part of potentially an area where we can increase housing supply relatively quickly if we can bring houses that have been moved into short-term holiday lets without planning permission. Those are houses that are already built. They have planning permission, and they would potentially move straight back into the market. And there are potentially several hundred of those. And I note that there is, 400 houses available through the rezoned housing site. So it's of that same order of magnitude of houses. That again, though, requires consultation. It requires sensitivity around potential disruption to an industry and so on. So these are complex issues that we work through with a team relatively small, but I must say exceptionally hardworking and dedicated officers who all understand the need for this. But we do take these things through processes, and I think I would be the first. Other members would be standing up and criticising me just as much were I to try and rush through things without following those due processes. So that is the difficult balancing act that we have to follow.
Thank you. Deputy President, final supplementary.
Thanks, sir. The Minister said it himself when he used the phrase over-promise and under-deliver. So can I ask the Minister how we can feel any confidence that his assurance that this will be done by the end of the month can be taken seriously when that's only 14 days away? And can the Minister confirm that even if he is able to get it done in that time frame, from what date will this policy be in action and providing those affordable homes? And will he further give a message out to those who are planning to submit planning applications that they should be including that as a minimum 15%, but hopefully higher than that from now?
Minister.
So the question about, I've given the answer that I've given. I've said we will do our very best. I can't absolutely guarantee. And I've temporarily forgotten the second bit that you asked in there. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
So that was from what date the policy would then be in action?
Yes, sir, sorry, I beg your pardon. So yes, that is not entirely under my control. There is a second aspect to the development, to the enactment of Policy H6. It does require, from my memory, work from the Minister of Housing and Communities to develop the products that will be available to use with that. And I haven't checked recently to see what stage that work is at, but I'd be happy to update.
So he missed the final part of the question, which was about whether he would be prepared to send some sort of message to developers who are planning to put planning applications in that they ought to be planning for that policy to come in effect as soon as possible and not submitting applications that don't include that affordable housing contribution.
I think the answer to that question is that even if an application came in the next month or two, and the guidance wasn't there, it would be determined at a point when the guidance was in place. So I can't see that would need to be triggered. That would be triggered.
Thank you, Minister. Question 14, Deputy Luce will ask of the Minister for Children and Education. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. With regard to nursery provision on the island, will the Minister advise what meetings, if any, she's held since the last state sitting with Akerwood Nursery and more generally with other ministers on the subject?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Dublé would have had delegated responsibility for early years, but as she's mallard, I will answer the question on her behalf. And the first thing that I need to point out is that I wouldn't normally answer questions in this area, but I appear to be the last man standing this time because we have a preschool operated by the parish in St Peter in which I have some responsibilities. So therefore, it can be a difficult area, and I will absent myself normally from any discussions regarding grants or increases to the state's funding. So, that said, Deputy Dublé met with the owners of Akerwood Nursery on Thursday, 6th of July, the day after the last state sitting. She tells me it was a positive and informative meeting and she was able to fully understand their current position and the actions taken. Since the last assembly, Deputy Dublé has also held discussions with myself as the Assistant Minister for Children and Education And those were more general, more on the basis of the JEA, the Early Years Association, and also with the Chief Minister regarding early years. Looking at the meetings that did take place, in addition, she met with JEA, the Jersey Early Years Association, on the 10th of July, and she also met with the Jersey child carers on the 13th of July. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. And I just wish both the Assistant Minister and the Minister well from being Malad. So we've seen a massive decline in numbers in people providing childcare, nurseries, and in fact in the day care association we're down now to over about 50 people from 200, and it's my view, sir, that this is down to bureaucracy. The amount of forms and courses that had to be undertaken are quite overwhelming. Does the Minister accept that bureaucracy is a major factor in the inability for the childcare provision on the island?
Thank you for that question. I wasn't particularly aware of the bureaucracy element, but I'm certainly willing to add that to any discussions with the Early Years Association. And also I can easily have discussions with our own staff in the parish. If that is an issue, then we need to seriously look at that. And I will take that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Assistant Minister, Deputy Doublé, has stated that making quality childcare more affordable is my highest priority because it is one of the biggest cost of living pressures for families. There were 7 priorities, Council of Minister priorities in the Common Strategic Policy. One was cost of living, another was children and families. Is the Assistant Minister not receiving adequate support on these priorities from the Council of Ministers?
As the Assistant Minister is not available to answer that question directly, I can only comment. Certainly in this latest on the issue of Acrewood, she certainly did seem to be receiving support. So I would have to ask her directly whether she feels that she's not received the required support. Thank you.
Supplementary? Final supplementary? Deputy Luce?
Sorry, sir, I was expecting a few more questions, but especially given that this is such a massive issue for the island, sir. Getting parents back to work is vital to the productivity gains that our economic minister speaks about when he says his solutions are for returning us to a much better economy. Does the minister agree with me, sir, that given the challenges, that it's time that the states provided these facilities?
Well, of course, the states have commenced providing these facilities in primary schools. Most primary schools do have a nursery attached. However, I think there are some, I think certainly their hours don't extend beyond the school hours, and I think that's an issue. But the private sector has always been very important. And I think they provide a service that many parents like. I can speak from experience that, and I go back to our own experience as a parish, that we can never satisfy the number of requests we have for places. And I can't speak of all nurseries, but we have, we have constant requests for to take up places, which we don't have. We have 24 places, they're fully occupied, and yet we can, there was one point last year where we had requests from 10 parents in 1 week. So it is something that we're looking at. I know that, looking further into the provision of nurseries in the primary schools is something that the Assistant Minister is looking at. They're already there, but I think it's early sort of years in that. We need to look at exactly what parents require. But also there is that important part, which is the privately owned nurseries that have served the island very well. Sorry, I've actually forgotten the thread of your question.
I think the Minister was agreeing with me that the states need to provide these facilities, sir.
Yes. So we have started on that journey, that's what I can say, and we're looking to improve that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Question 15, Deputy Rob Ward will ask of the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism
May
and Sport
I,
and Culture.
if I ask this question, just ask who's answering it and where the answer has come from? If it was given to the Assistant Minister directly from the Minister, then I'd be interested in the answer. But if his officer's writing an answer without any ministerial involvement, then I'm effectively not asking the Minister a question.
Yes. Who will respond to this question?
That will be me, sir. This answer is a combination of talking to officers, my own knowledge of the process, and speaking to the Minister last week.
You want to pursue your question?
Well, not really, sir. I submitted this question by the deadline on Thursday. Can I ask the Assistant Minister whether that conversation took place when then, and when was the Minister here? Or because, to be quite frank, this question time is becoming
I think
pointless.
You either put your question now or another time. Do you want to put it another time?
Sir, can I ask it to be taken as a written question and have a written reply from this or not?
In view of the time, yes, because we've got many questions left, as you can.
Well, I may as well, sir, because no offence to the Assistant Minister, I'm sure he'll do a very amicable job, an extremely well-delivered response. However, sir, this is about ministerial plans. Thank you, sir.
If you're content to answer the question in writing.
Yes, sir, we are.
Yes, thank you. Yes, question 16, Deputy Howell will ask of the Minister for Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain how his department ensures that every tanker load of leachate taken from the sales of hazardous waste at La Collette is safe according to internationally accepted standards? And furthermore, how the public is assured of the robustness of this process? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So there's a slight degree of ambiguity in the way the question is written. So I approached Deputy Howell. We've agreed what the question was intended to ask, and I'm going to endeavour to answer it in that context. So,
thank you.
So as I've explained in my previous response to Deputy Howell, the leachate at La Collette is that when it's sent to La Collette is treated in exactly the same way as raw sewage is treatment. That treatment is fully compliant with all the discharge regulations, and the site is licensed and regulated under Jersey's drainage and waste management laws. So, it also holds a trade effluent discharge permit and a waste management licence. Water samples at the outflow are analysed against the marine environmental quality standards specified in the European Union's Water Framework Directive. So, recently there's been quite a lot of concern expressed about the possible presence of trace elements of heavy metals discharge, and as I said earlier, in recent times there haven't been any of those tests, but I've spoken to the department and we're already underway to set up monthly tests for heavy metals at the outlet, and furthermore we're quite happy to make those results publicly known. So, thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Howell?
Yes, I was really asking as well how we're actually testing the leachate when we're taking it from the hazardous waste before it goes to La Collette. Thank you, sir.
Melissa?
So we certainly don't test the leachate before it's transported. I'm led to believe that there aren't any safety issues in the transport process. So I think that would possibly be slightly unnecessary, sir. But we do actually test leachate from 10 cells every 6 months, and we do actually test for heavy metals at that time from the leachate itself from 10 cells. So.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, question 17, Deputy Catherine Curtis will ask of the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Given that in his ministerial priorities, the Minister states that he wishes to support the development of the medicinal cannabis industry into a highly regulated, robust and innovative export-focused element of our rural economy, will he advise what action has been taken to address this part of his plan?
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I will just confirm for the record that the Minister and I did discuss over the phone the 3 questions that I'm delegated for, as well as obviously preparing in advance. Sir, as outlined in the delivery plan, further strategic work has been commissioned and it is anticipated that this work will be completed by Q3 2023. This work will assess the key risks to the industry and advise on how to maximise the opportunity in the medicinal cannabis industry and develop our jurisdiction as a premier location for medicinal cannabis. The Minister has also reconstituted the Medicinal Cannabis Ministerial Group and an officer-level group to coordinate government activity.
Supplementary.
So is there a long-term policy in place now to drive the development?
Thank you, sir. As I mentioned, work is underway. The plan is to be looking 10-15 years within our policy development on this sector.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Assistant Minister, what communication has been undertaken with the Health Minister and Environment Minister in order to ensure that whatever industry is developed is compliant both in terms of World Health Organization rules on medicines and in the environmental impact of what is effectively a monoculture? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Minister.
Sir, the Minister does meet with the Health Minister, the Justice and Home Affairs Minister and the Environment Minister, and they do routinely discuss the industry and the relevant challenges that each Minister has.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes.
Can I ask them, does the Minister have a view on the role of cannabis in terms of its medical use and whether or not there needs to be a change in the direction of the industry so that the product produced is more exportable? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Minister.
I believe, sir, that we have a regulatory regime that is compliant against both the UK issuing import licences and others and Jersey issuing export licences with regards to medicinal cannabis. And I believe, speaking with the Minister and officers, that we are content with the current regime.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. When the Assistant Minister says he's content with the current regime, then could he please explain why he's looking to revise it and what his position is regarding the World Health Organization rules and the lack of a national regulatory authority?
Assistant Minister.
So I dare say we are getting very technical in an area that I will profess is not my expertise. Speaking to officers, I did ask about our position, as I have been approached by different individuals about our position with regards to World Health Organization standards. I have been reassured that our processes conform to that. That is a separate thing to obviously developing a 10-15 year plan for medicinal cannabis as an industry in Jersey.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Tadier.
Can the Assistant Minister assure that Jersey is being treated in the same way as any other producer that might be offering similar products through the UK and is not in any way being singled out in this process?
Assistant Minister.
I am not aware that Jersey is being targeted in any differently to industries. There are a number of factors at play here, and there have been relevant or recent headlines around industries. It is important that we split the production of hemp and medicinal cannabis in this conversation, though. But I'm not aware of a fundamental difference.
So,
yes, supplementary.
So would the Assistant Minister explain whether part of or part or all of the issue here is that there are traces of THC coming through in what is otherwise supposed to be CBD products. Is that the case?
So can I ask Deputy to clarify if he's talking about a specific case or any particular instance in which this is meant to be happening?
I'm asking, so my understanding is that when Jersey's looking to export non-THC content CBD, so products which are destined potentially for medicinal use, but which don't need any, you don't need a medicinal license to use CBD products. And it's quite common for there to be an element of THC trace element in it. And is it the trace elements which are causing the issue for the exportation of the product? And of course, if he doesn't know, that's also fine. It's not his area, but he could maybe offer to come back with that information.
Assistant Minister.
Sir, the process for export is to require a valid import licence from the place in which it is received. So I believe actually as long as processes and import licences are granted, Jersey will follow suit with export licences. The specifics on any individual case, and I know there are some that are live, the Department and Government are not looking to comment on individual cases, and I'll make that point at this time.
Thank you. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. In the Assistant Minister's 10-15-year plan, can he tell the Assembly how much financial return he's expecting to the Exchequer?
Assistant Minister.
No, sir, I can't at this point.
Would he agree with me, sir, that there will be no financial return to the Exchequer?
Assistant Minister.
Sir, I can't agree with that right now. The previous states agreed a tax position on medicinal cannabis, and whilst the industry is in its early stages, I think it is right that we see out how the industry develops and pays through that mechanism.
Conotop of St Mary. Conotop of St Mary.
Thank you, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. Can you hear me? Yes, the Assistant Minister will be aware that there was a fairly critical report by the previous Economic Development Scrutiny Panel as to the regulations in force. During the, well, I'll make a question briefer. Who now constitutes the Oversight Policy Group in ministerial terms, which was promised during the course of that panel's review? Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Minister.
Sir, I believe that the Conotop is discussing the ministerial group I referenced, the members of which are the Economic Development Minister, the Minister for Health and Social Services, the Minister for Home Affairs and the Minister for Environment.
Thank you, that's fine. That's all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Final sort of entry, Deputy Curtis.
Thank you, sir. The Assistant Minister mentioned key risks being looked at in the work ready for Q3. Does this work include a risk assessment on the legislative base for this sector?
Assistant Minister.
I would suggest that we return with a more formal position as to what all the work covers to the Deputy, and I do apologise as one Deputy has risen for the lack of attendance by Ministers in this session.
Thank you, Assistant Minister. Question 18, Deputy Alves will ask of the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Given that in his ministerial priorities, the Minister states that he wishes to develop a coordinated approach to support across government to help on the delivery of Minister's strategic priorities, will he advise what action has been taken to address this priority and what the role of the arm's length organisation Jersey Sport is in addressing it? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I would just point out that I would have hopefully been answering this question anyway, were the Minister here. A new sports sector officer was appointed earlier this year to provide additional resource to this priority, and her work to date has identified a number of opportunities for improving a coordinated approach. A new government group has also been established to discuss, agree and coordinate the government's sport and physical activity priorities and determine how these will be delivered and by who. Another example of cross-government working which falls under this priority to date is the establishment of a play strategy steering group, which I'm chairing, and brings together representatives from various government departments, as well as other stakeholders, including Jersey Sport. In line with ministerial priorities, a review of sport and physical activity policy, strategy and delivery is currently underway. Jersey Sport, as the arm's length organisation, is the key delivery partner for any outcomes of this review and in supporting the implementation of the Minister's priorities for sport and physical activity.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. When can the Minister advise me when we will be seeing the completion of the work that she just stated there with the priorities and who's delivering what? Thank you.
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. Some of that work will be ongoing, and for example, the government group that's been set up is something that I would like to see as an ongoing, continuing piece of work that won't have a conclusion as such. Other pieces of work within it may well do, and I would expect the review that's currently underway to speak to that point as well, and perhaps make some suggestions about how something like that could be formalised in future. That review is currently ongoing. The public consultation part of it closed on Friday, and there's been a large number of submissions which are quite detailed. So our timescale for publishing the results of it have been pushed back slightly. We expect that to now be October. And then the play strategy steering group that I mentioned, we would expect towards the autumn to be potentially publishing some results and starting to talk about that work. We've held 3 meetings, I think, to date on that, which have all been establishing terms of reference and bringing together quite a diverse group of people. But as soon as I have more information on that, I'm very happy to share.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. In terms of priorities in this question, can the Minister confirm whether it is the case that Jersey Sport spent more on branded merchandise for Jersey Sport than they did on, for example, funding Jersey Football Association?
Assistant Minister.
I don't have the details of the accounts of Jersey Sport to hand, but they are published annually and are available online for anybody to have a look at.
So, can I ask whether that is the case, whether the Minister thinks this is the right priority in terms of developing our sport? And isn't it not about grassroots funding for example, football, women's football on the island, girls' football? And so I would say that isn't happening in some areas simply because they don't have changing rooms. So is that not the priority that should be made and not the branding for an arm's length organisation? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Assistant Minister.
The review that's currently underway is taking a look at all of the priorities both within government and within Jersey Sport and how the two work together. And I expect that once that's been complete, we can move forward in a far more productive way to perhaps recalibrate where necessary and work together towards some common goals. It's now been over 5 years since Jersey Sport was established, and I think it's a very sensible moment to take a look at that and move forward from there.
Thank you. Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. I just wondered if the Minister could let us know when we'll have the result of the roof of Fort Regent, please, and whether we'll be able to, some things may be able to return there after the vaccination centre closes. Thank you, sir.
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm not aware of a timescale on the roof work. I can liaise with the Infrastructure Minister and come back to the Deputy.
The other bit of the question was whether we're going to be able to return to using the large hall in the fort when the vaccination centre closes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. As I've said in answer to a previous question earlier today, we are continuing to press ahead with the decant of sport from Fort Regent, but the delays to the Oakfield project mean that Fort Regent needs to stay open for the time being until that project is delivered, which we currently anticipate to be another year, and a bid has been made as part of the government plan to ensure that that facility can stay open. My view, and it is still a sports facilities site at Fort Regent, is that while there is a space there, and if people want to use it, and we can make that happen within recognising that there are challenges around staffing the site and where certain areas may have been closed off, but if there are suitable places that can be used in a pragmatic way while the site is still open, then I would be very keen to see that happen.
Lady Feltham.
Thank you, sir. In her answers to the questions, the Assistant Minister has mentioned a lot of reviews and steering committees. Could she confirm the cost of the reviews and administering the steering committees, and also the anticipated benefits and what will be delivered?
Yes. Yes, please, yes.
Thank you, sir. The cost, which has I've previously published as well, of the review is around £12,000. I believe that we have just agreed for another day or so's work of that individual, because there's been such a high interest in meeting with him from various groups and organisations. I think that represents extremely good value for money for the work that we want to complete there. And as I said earlier, I believe that's a really important piece of work that is going to carry out a review, a very timely review of our relationship with Jersey Sport, amongst other things, and then actually provide a really good base for where we can reset and move on in a productive way. Everything else that I've mentioned in there, the steering group and others, is all within existing resources, and the steering group particularly brings together a really diverse and interesting group of people, some of whom are stakeholders from outside of government, and it represents arm's lengths, working with us, charities, some individuals with interests and qualifications in that area as well, all of whom are giving up their time within their own existing resources to work with us on this.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Given that even though the Assistant Minister has said that this work will be done within existing resources, it will indeed come at a cost. And so it would be good if the Assistant Minister could quantify how many hours she anticipates these people spending in meetings, and what work may not be done because people are spending time having a chat in meetings.
This is the Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I really would take issue with the way that question was asked, because this, if, for example, take the play strategy, a commitment was made by this Assembly as part of the Bridging Island Plan that 3 ministers would work on exactly this. It has then come up as a priority across various conversations that some joined up thinking needs to happen on this. So that is exactly what is being done now. And actually, I would argue that compiling some figures, as the Deputy suggests, is what would actually be a waste of time and resources.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Could the Assistant Minister just clarify the extent to which Jersey Sport is being involved in the development of policy as well as the delivery of policy? And if that is the case, and if it is the case, how this conflict of interest might be addressed and the risks associated with it addressed.
Assistant Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think it's fair to say, and the Deputy will know this from some of our previous conversations, that I think there is a lack of clarity around this area, which is one of the key drivers for the review that I have mentioned earlier. I very much see government as setting the policy and Jersey Sport as delivering on that work, but recognising that those employed by Jersey Sport and the organisation itself are very valuable and experienced and passionate about sport, and and the aims of delivering for islanders, and so there should be mechanisms in place for them to be consulted and to feed in on policy. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. That brings the period for oral questions on notice to an end.
So may I make a suggestion that we could seek to finish the 2 remaining oral questions that have been lodged with notice? I think it's within the Assembly's gift to do that, sir. And we're coming back tomorrow anyway, I think, and we won't finish questions without notice today anyway. So I think it would be courteous both to ministers and those who have prepared answers to finish those.
No, I think that's previously been ruled by the chair that there is no facility to extend the time for oral questions on notice. It has been in the past, as you'll know, been suggested that those who've been asked questions now can reply to those questions in writing, but there's been no ruling to the effect that there can be any extension of the time permitted for oral questions. It's not permitted by standing orders. So we now move to the first period of questions to ministers without notice, and the first question period is for the Minister for the Environment, and the first question is for the Conotab of St Helier.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister indicate whether he has received the Planning Inspector's report on the Les Sablons development in Broad Street, and if so, when he received it and when he will be publishing or making his decision upon it? So.
Minister.
I actually can't answer that question in the way that he thinks. Because I was on the Council of the National Trust for Jersey, which objected to that planning application, whilst I was on the council, I have recused myself from the decision-making process, and it is Assistant Minister Jeune who will look at that application. I don't routinely look at the Assistant Minister's planning applications because they are ones in which I have a conflict. So that would be rather counterproductive. So I'm not able to answer that question, but I'm sure we can get you the answer to that question very quickly.
I'm grateful, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister remind the Assembly of the process that he goes through to ensure compliance with planning obligation agreements?
Minister.
So planning obligation agreements are not directly the responsibility of the Minister in terms of how they're set. They're set between the planning committee and the developer. However, when planning obligation agreements are entered into, they then become a subject of compliance. And the question of whether compliance has occurred in general is a question that is raised by people rather than being proactively investigated, because of the limited amount of resource that we have to pursue compliance in a number of different areas. So in general, those questions are brought to our attention by people.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And I just think I'm correct in saying to the Minister that it's not just the Planning Committee that enforce planning obligation agreements. But my supplementary is this, sir. Would the Minister be surprised if people to undertake legal obligations in entering into planning obligation agreements and then don't comply with them?
Minister.
Well, yes, this is an area that I have begun to focus on with the compliance team, because it is clear that there has not, it was also mentioned, I think, in the McKinnon report, that there has not been sufficient rigour in the policing, if you like. I don't particularly, actually that's the wrong word, but in the monitoring, let's say, of planning obligation agreements, which extend into a wide number of areas. They're not all things that, are major things. Some of them are quite small. But it is my view that we should be, for the credibility of the planning system, that enforcement should be consistent and timely. And it is something that I'm hoping to be able to drive forward with much more rigour, let's say, as we make the improvements in the McKinnon report.
Thank you. Deputy Scott.
Sir, could the Minister please expand a bit on his philosophy that he shared with States members in recent days regarding random checks in the context of licences of landlords and how that the licensing of landlords is expected to improve random checks. given that car drivers have random checks despite not having licences.
Is this in your field, Mr.
Okay, so this, for the benefit of members who weren't on the briefing on Friday, I think it was, this refers to the licensing of private rented dwellings, which I'm bringing to the Assembly tomorrow. And you can have a sneak preview of part of my speech in the sense that this relates to the question of why we do not have the ability at the moment to pursue compliance cases effectively, again, where the safety of rented dwellings is at issue. And it is because tenants are very, very reluctant to come forward with complaints. They fear that they will be victimised in some way, their tenancy may not be renewed, their name may get known, passed around and so on. Whether that's valid or not is slightly not the point. The point is we know for a fact that people are very reluctant to bring forward complaints. One way of dealing with that is to, and the reason why that is because, is because if we do an inspection of a property, then the landlord knows that the only reason we are doing that inspection is because of a complaint. We would have no other knowledge of even that the rented accommodation was present in that building, because we do not know where rented accommodation is in the island. So the point about the licensing system is that every property that is rented will have to be licensed, and therefore there will be a license which will detail where it is. Therefore, we can do a number of random inspections. Therefore, when doing an inspection, the landlord will not know whether the reason we're doing the inspection is because they've received a complaint or because we are doing a random inspection. That should give tenants the comfort to bring forward complaints in the knowledge that they won't get blamed by their landlord for having done so. So in as much as that is a philosophy, there it is.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. If random checks are going to be increased, is there not a danger that more tenants will be asked to leave whilst properties are being renovated? And in the absence of sufficient alternatives for housing, might that cause a danger of lack of housing?
So I believe that's a relatively small risk in this sense that when we embark in compliance on these cases, the issues at stake are very rarely of the kind which require immediate vacation of premises. So quite often they will be things that can be sorted out in a short-term way whilst remedial work is planned and then done. So for example, we've had cases where windows have been broken and the window gets boarded up for three months until a replacement is put in. Or in more extreme cases, you might shut off a room whilst that work is ongoing, but you would nevertheless be able to keep people living in it. So only in the most extreme cases where the property was literally structurally in danger would we anticipate the need to actually move somebody out. And in those cases, the same as when that happens in any other situation in society, there are various mechanisms to deal with it. It might be that it's through social housing provision, it might be through people going to CLS and explaining their situation and so on. It is analogous to any other situation where an emergency requires someone to be rehoused. So, and we don't anticipate, as I say, a massive extra demand on that service as a result of licensing being in place.
Thank you. Dr. Balash.
So, following Deputy Scott's questions and indeed the Minister's letter to the Jersey Evening Post published on Saturday and headlined, "The licensing scheme will offer an efficient way to ensure standards." Will the Minister explain how his scheme to prohibit landowners from letting their property without a licence will help to identify properties where minimum standards have not been observed?
Minister.
Yes, sir. I must say I'm not responsible for the headline, but I certainly stand by of that letter. Those are sub-editor decisions. But I stand by the contents of the letter, and I think I've partly explained it already in the sense that what we need is to encourage people to come forward with complaints, and what we know is that they are very reluctant to do so. And we know this because we do sometimes get calls from people who say, we're just phoning up to let you know about this, we don't want you to take any action. Officers then engage in protracted discussions to try and persuade them to at least get a visit so that officers can see what the issue is. Sometimes they agree to that on the condition that no further action is taken. So we know that there is this demand, demand, that's the wrong word. We know there is this problem out there, but we also know that we're not surfacing the whole problem and we're not being able to follow up on those problems because of the reluctance of people to come forward. So by having a license scheme, we'll be able to do random inspections, which, as I explained in my answer before, will mean that tenants who fear that there might be repercussions will have the confidence of coming forward, knowing that their landlord will not know whether they've been visited because of a random inspection or because of a complaint.
Yes?
I don't think the Minister has actually answered my question, but does that mean that bad landlords will not be asked to declare on their application forms that their properties do not comply with minimum safety standards?
Minister.
So I think it's implicit in applying for a license to rent out housing, to rent out your property, that you are self-certifying that you meet those standards. Those standards have been in place since 2018. They are the law, and they have been for 4 years. So the question of whether or not a property meets those standards should not arise. It must already do so. This licensing scheme is a scheme to make make it more efficient, more flexible in terms of the way that we are able to enforce that 2018 law.
Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain if he feels there is sufficient testing of the outflow from the sewage works at Bellazan to ensure the safety of islanders? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Yes, sir. So my understanding is there are two sets of tests that take place in relation to Bellazan. So there is one set, which the Infrastructure Minister has already talked about, which occur at the actual outflow. And that is the sewage treatment works monitoring its own output. But there are then tests that are done by the Natural Environment team in St. Albans Bay. And St. Albans Bay is sampled regularly. It's sampled including next to the outfall, so that we get a good idea of what is happening in the bay. Those tests are very regular. They are published, actually. The results are published on the website. And they showed, even when we had the recent problem with the sewage treatment works, which showed that the outlet at the sewage treatment works was putting out water that was below quality. By the time it was being dispersed in the bay was still of good quality, and that's because obviously the tides and the large size of the bay disperses that water. But nevertheless, that was when we had the bathing advisory, just to be sure, on the safe side. So I am confident, on the basis that we do public tests on a regular basis, publicly published tests rather, on a regular basis in the bay, that the outfall is of sufficient quality.
Thank you, sir. I realise that for bacterial quality that is the case, but is it the case for heavy metals, for forever chemicals? Where are they and how far round do you go with the tide, and how often are those tested? And how? Thank you, sir.
So, dealing with PFAS first, PFAS levels in our groundwater and reservoirs are currently below the EU standards, so it would be a major astonishment if they, by being further diluted in the ocean, became higher than that. So I think PFAS in seawater, we'd obviously like there to be absolutely none at all, but it would be hard to imagine that it would breach limits. In terms of heavy metals, I would have to get back with a detailed answer on that. But there are various ways you can look at the health of the seabed, which is what you're talking about when you're talking about heavy metals. And one of them is seagrass. And we have one of the few areas actually in Britain where seagrass areas are expanding fairly significantly. I have to say we're not entirely sure why that is, but it can only be good news because seagrass is particularly sensitive to contamination. And so in general, I would say I'm not worried, but I will look in more detail and try and get a more detailed answer to the Deputy on that.
Comment Arbison Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister outline to members his department's policy with regard to noxious weeds and particularly ragwort? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So I regret that off the top of my head, I do not have that information, but again, I will happily look into it. I apologise.
Could I just remind the Minister the ragwort, a noxious weed, seems to be prevalent throughout the island, and just to make the Minister aware that this is poisonous to cattle. Thank you, sir.
The last question from Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister confirm whether he or his officers have undertaken any assessment on the effect of the 21E scheme on the potential availability of land or property that could be used for affordable housing, public open space, or access to public amenity?
So the question of 21E properties is that they are restricted to purchase properties above a certain threshold. And in general, those thresholds would automatically mitigate. In fact, that's why they're there, against the land being suitable for, or the property being suitable for low-cost housing. So I think when we look at whether or not we do this, I would think to myself, is this a worthwhile use of time? And I would say it probably, in my view, is not. I'm not aware of having analysed that explicitly. But it's a question of, given that 21Es are buying into properties that are of very high value, I'm not quite sure that that would be particularly useful.
That brings the first period of questions without notice to an end. The second period is for questions for the Minister for International Development. Deputy Andrews, then Deputy Mezek. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you very much, sir. Can the Minister provide detail on support that has been given to Sudan?
Minister.
Thank you. I thank the Deputy for his question. Sudan is a conflict which erupted in April, and it is an evolving situation. We have 24.7 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. That's 53% more than the start of this year. Jersey Overseas Aid have allocated 150,000 to two agencies so far. 75,000 to Care International for medical supplies, health, nutrition, wash for people in the country. And in neighbouring countries where so far 450,000 people have fled, Chad, Egypt, South Sudan, we have allocated 75,000 to UNHCR. We also have one of our UN placements, our junior programme officers, who's on a 2-year placement working in Cairo at the moment with UNHCR. As well as that, at the beginning of the year, we award amounts of money to persistent crises through the UN.
Thank you. Supplementary? No? Thank you, Minister. The second question is from Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. On social media recently, the Minister highlighted the brilliant work done by a Jersey Overseas Aid bursary recipient as an intern for the Palestinian Centre for Education and Cultural Exchange. Could the Minister explain a bit more about the relationship between the Overseas Aid Commission, its bursary students, and this organisation, and explain perhaps also about what other work is done in that particular region to support and provide relief for people who live under occupation?
Minister.
Yes, as the Deputy knows very well, this is a very protracted situation whereby Palestine has been occupied now for over 50 years. Since 2009, Jersey Overseas Aid have been supporting Palestine, and we have so far allocated £1.4 million to Palestine in various ways. An agency we use and indeed used last week to deliver some medical aid. It's medical aid for Palestinians and also empower girls and women there. Jersey Overseas Aid does offer bursaries, both professional and bursaries to students to encourage them to go and study or sort of utilise their skills in countries such as Palestine.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I thank the Minister for that answer, and I'd like to ask her if she agrees with me that as an island community that knows what it's like to suffer under occupation, it's vitally important that the Overseas Aid Commission continues to provide support and have a connection with this particular part of the world, and will she endeavour to update states members as frequently as she's able to as to the brilliant work the Commission is doing in that particular part of the world?
Yes, indeed. And whilst I don't remember the occupation personally, I know those that did, grandparents and my own parents. So yes, and as I say, we have supported Palestine and since 2009 by 1.4 million, and it is something that we monitor. And I will update the Assembly as soon as when the opportunities arise.
Thank you, Minister. Conrad Robertson Clement.
Thank you, sir. Minister, you might have partly answered this to Deputy Mezek's question, but what opportunities does your ministry offer to school leavers to participate in international development projects?
We offer opportunities, not necessarily just to school leavers. For example, the UN placement I spoke about of the person we have in Cairo. Today we are advertising, I can advise the Assembly, we're advising for our 4th UN placement, and they will go and work in the Ukraine. So we have 4 placements, and those are wonderful opportunities for islanders interested in international development. We have other opportunities, for example, our volunteer programs, our community work projects. Admittedly, they're volunteering, but if a student wants to go out and experience the work, there's normally a 30-strong people in a community work project, and those people that work either in this year, for example, building a sand dam in Kenya, community centre in Nepal, and the last one is sending teachers to Rwanda in a couple of weeks' time, actually, when they've broken up. So it's wonderful opportunities for islanders to expand their skills and experience. And bursaries, as I've mentioned as well. So plenty of opportunities. We've got brochures and it's on our website. So if you know of anyone interested, especially in this UN placement, do give them a nudge.
Thank you. Deputy Talia.
I don't need to ask my question.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Is any consideration being given to provide aid to people in the Congo region, and is the conflict there affecting any of the aid initiatives in Rwanda?
Minister.
Yes, indeed, we do give to the Congo area, and in fact, that is one of the areas of conflict, ongoing conflict. So we use some of our pooled funds at the beginning of the year to donate monies through our agencies there. The last part of your question was, does it affect Rwanda?
The aid that's being given to Rwanda by the JOIC.
No, it doesn't affect Rwanda. We've got different projects going on in Rwanda, a lot of dairy projects, financial inclusion, that they're less emergencies than the Congo monies.
Sorry, sir, I just meant, is the conflict affecting that aid?
I couldn't say no, but obviously if we are giving our sustainable grants to agencies, we ensure that aid is being delivered. The aid that we give to the Congo is emergency aid, and it's a different purpose, but no, it wouldn't affect the sustainable projects in Rwanda.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain what she achieved during her recent visit to Zambia and Malawi? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Yes, so I went... Oh, sorry. I would say there were three main areas of focus. Probably more generally to fly the flag for Jersey, to reinforce Jersey's reputation as a good global citizen, to give positive visibility, to demonstrate that Jersey is more than just an international finance centre, and to build relationships with governments, British High Commissioner, with the communities and with our NGOs who we work with. More specifically, I went there to promote the Jersey breed, which is, has huge amounts of benefits in Africa, to launch our first project in Zambia with the RJA and HS. I spoke at a Jersey Africa Jersey forum in Blantyre, where again we're promoting the Jersey breed, but probably, well, not probably, but the most important reason for going there was to try and alleviate malnutrition.
Thank you. Supplementary? Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. So does the Minister think that Russia's exit from the Black Sea Grain Initiative will result in increased demand on overseas aid? And if so, where will that come from?
Minister.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Are there any more questions for this Minister? Okay, so that brings this period of questions to an end. And we now turn to the final period, questions for the Chief Minister.
So can I ask, it's customary to move the adjournment at 5:30. Could I move the adjournment, please?
The adjournment is proposed. Is that seconded?
Yes, sir.
Anyone wish to speak on the proposal to adjourn now? Deputy Gorst, yes.
Sir, I'm happy to take questions. It is customary for the question session to be completed when we sit on a Monday to deal with questions, but I'm in the hands of members.
Yes. Does any member wish to speak on this proposition, or should we move to the vote now? In that case, we'll move to the vote. Members wishing to adjourn now will vote pour. Those wishing to complete the final session of questions for the Chief Minister in the form of Deputy Gorst will vote conch. And I invite the greffier to open the voting. Very funny. All members have the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. I think there was just the one vote online, which isn't in the figures in front of me. Yes, so I can announce that the proposition has been rejected, 17 votes pour, 20 votes contra, and 1 abstention. Are there any questions for the Chief Minister in the form of Deputy Gorst? Yes, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. With Deputy Gorst fielding these questions, it's like the good old days, isn't it? And by the good old days, I mean, of course, the bad old days when the government he previously led inflicted a £10 million austerity package against some of the most financially vulnerable people in our community. Is it the view of the current Chief Minister that those policies had any bearing at all on the growing levels of inequality which have been observed in successive income distribution surveys? And what policies, if any, does the current Chief Minister believe in to undo the damage that was caused in that time?
Thank you, sir. Perhaps I'm now wishing I'd voted poor to Deputy Tadia. The reality, of course, is, sir, is not quite as described by Deputy Mezek. The last government for which I was actually sitting in this chair proper sought to balance budgets and not increase expenditure. And that's what it did, and it made savings across government portfolios. The Deputy also knows that the driving difficulty behind income inequality, and has been for the last at least 2, if not 3 reports about income distribution, is the cost of housing. And that is an issue which the current Chief Minister is absolutely focused, together with a Housing Minister, on dealing with and bringing forward solutions to.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. It would be nice to see any evidence of that any time soon, as we've already discussed in this state sitting. So the question was more to do with the austerity package which he inflicted as Chief Minister, which was about direct financial support to financially vulnerable people being cut. Given that this government has quite rightly adopted in its mini-budget position previously increasing payments to financially vulnerable people in Jersey, is that a sign that the current government rejects the method that the previous government, which he was head of, had in that time?
Yes.
So the current government, like previous governments, believes in balancing the budget and only spending what is available to spend and not living on debt, as previous governments did. What this government did in the 100-day plan was to bring forward a mini budget to deal with the cost of living crisis. That's no different, I think, to what previous governments would have done, given the cost of living crisis that the incoming government faced when it came into government. And I stand by those measures in the mini-budget, as I know the Chief Minister would do were she answering this question in person.
Thank you. Deputy Luce. Thank you. Deputy Tadia.
Would the acting Chief Minister tell us what discussions took place at Council of Ministers regarding landlords' licensing that Deputy Renouf will be bringing? And can he confirm, in the spirit of openness, whether there is unanimous support for this proposition from the Council of Ministers? And if not, whether there's likely to be a free vote from government on this key piece of legislation?
So by convention, as the Deputy knows, conversations around the Council of Ministers table and the minutes thereof are confidential to allow for good, open conversation and policy discussion. As the Deputy might also understand, there was robust conversations about this particular issue. When it was last discussed, I was not at the Council of Ministers, but my understanding is that it is a decision to move forward by majority of the Council of Ministers.
Supplementary, so I don't expect for the details of the conversations to be given out, of course, but as the Chief Minister reminded us, I wanted the outcome to be reported back. As the Chief Minister reminded us, I think, at the last sitting, it's the normal policy is for robust discussions to be had at Council of Ministers, then for Council of Ministers to come to a position, and then for the Council of Ministers to act collectively when it comes to agreed policy by a majority decision. Is that what happened? Is that what's going to happen in this particular debate, notwithstanding the absenteeism that we've already seen? They, of course, can't vote.
Minister.
So I'm not really sure that I've got anything to add to what I said. I was not at the Council of Ministers on the last occasion that this was discussed. When it was previously discussed, there was very broad support around the Council of Ministers table for it.
Robertson Clement.
Thank you, sir. Minister, given the high cost of living and its representation in GST and the high interest rates with our reserves, that there's that pot of money that we don't seem to have any of, what sort of a bonus do you think you will get during the fiscal year from both those resources?
Minister.
So let me just clarify, firstly, that of course the strategic reserve is intact and the old age pension pot is intact, and those two elements of reserve alone stand at over £3 billion. So let's not pretend that those reserves are not in place. Will there be an increase in GST arising out of the change to de minimis and the large offshore retail registration and charging of GST? Yes, we expect there will be. And as we see those increases in GST coming into the coffers, I would expect that they provide the vires for the cost of living ministerial group to think about other appropriate interventions.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. What I'm referring to is that because cost of living is so high, the amount of value taken from expenditure from the public will be greater than normal. And so I'm asking how much greater that will be to the exchequer. And also because interest rates are higher, one would expect that the investment that we have, the £3 billion, wherever it sits, would have a greater return. So I'm asking what that greater return will be in the fiscal year.
Minister.
So we don't calculate that in an ad hoc way. As the Constable will know, the Fiscal Policy Panel were on Ireland last week, and they were doing their analysis of the economy and considering exactly those matters that the Constable refers to. For us, there is a slight irony with increased interest rates means that it's more difficult for islanders and for families, but it can, because of the structure of our economy, mean that there is a greater tax take into Treasury. What happens is the Fiscal Policy Panel deliver their economic assumptions, and those economic assumptions are then reviewed by the Income Forecasting Group, and they then start to answer the questions going forward that the Constable is asking. So all of those answers will be available in the run-up to the government plan debate.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Chief Minister, the absent Chief Minister, is on record of saying that she regretted not voting for landlord licensing last time, can I ask the Acting Chief Minister whether the process of collective responsibility will be enacted for the Ministers and Council of Ministers in the vote on this landlord licensing proposition coming forward? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Well, as I said, sir, I understand that this proposal has come forward by majority decision. It's a nice trap that the deputy has laid for me, but it would not be appropriate for me acting to comment in response to that question. That actually is a matter for the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I take issue with the idea of a trap. This is about the transparency that this government has talked about from day one. So let's be transparent with this assembly, sir. Can I ask the minister, has he as a minister been told that he will vote with collective responsibility with other ministers in support of landlord licensing brought by his fellow minister to this assembly this week? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So, as I've tried to indicate, I was not at the Council of Ministers when they last discussed this matter, so I'm not aware of whether that conversation was taken or not. I am a supporter of the government, and I believe it's appropriate that ministers do support fellow ministers in what they are bringing before the Assembly. But of course, we know that with any form of collective responsibility, ministers may have had commitments in their manifesto. They may have had long-held and standing views, which allows them to have a conversation with the Chief Minister to say they're going to vote a different way, and that's the form of government that we have.
Thank you, sir. It's to build on what Deputy Ward has just asked the Acting Chief Minister, and it's just so he can be absolutely clear and transparent with us whether he has received any instruction, given that he wasn't at that Council of Ministers meeting and so must have had a subsequent discussion to it, whether he has been informed that collective responsibility applies to this proposition and ministers are formally requested to vote in line with it.
Minister.
Well, of course, I am not aware of having had any such instruction, but I think that the proposal that the Environment Minister has brought forward is a refined proposal and is different from the previous proposal. It certainly has greater support around the Council of Ministers table. And whilst I don't want to dull the excitement that tomorrow might bring with the votes, it is my intention to support the government.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. No, I'm obviously delighted by the last part of that. It'll be nice to vote together with the Deputy on this one for once, but can we take it from the earlier part of his answer that there has been no formal instruction given to ministers that collective responsibility applies to this proposition, seeing as he seems to have not been given that instruction himself? Can we take it that other ministers weren't either?
Minister.
So I said I was looking forward to supporting the government. That the intervention of the Deputy in the way that he is now going to vote makes me reconsider. As I said, so I have had no such instruction, and nor am I appraised of any conversations that the Chief Minister may have had with colleague ministers.
Thank you. Deputy Tadia.
So it really doesn't seem credible or certainly politically savvy that an acting Chief Minister should come to the Assembly knowing full well that there will be questions from a well-briefed opposition, at least, on the landlord licensing scheme, which has been dominating, I think, some headlines and certainly email inboxes over the last few months. To simply stand up and say that he hasn't given any thought or he hasn't been briefed by the Chief Minister as to how the government should act and vote on this issue. So given the fact that the acting Chief Minister said that he personally will support this, could he perhaps outline the policy position around collective responsibility when a majority decision has been taken at Council of Ministers, what the usual implication is for collective responsibility for that given proposition?
Minister.
So the Deputy knows that there is no formal legal collective responsibility that was removed from the states of Jersey law previously, and it is now dealt with in the ministerial code, and it is very clearly a matter for the Chief Minister proper, not an unbriefed acting Chief Minister.
So does the Chief Minister think that it's politically damaging for the government of which he is a part for him to say that he wasn't at a meeting where landlord licensing was discussed, that the Chief Minister will not be in the Assembly during the sitting at which the landlord licensing will be debated and voted on, despite the fact saying that she wished she had voted for it last time and is missing the actual vote this time, and that the Deputy Chief Minister is also not at the Assembly. Does this not smack of a government which is asleep at the wheel, or indeed not even on the boat, let alone in charge of the wheel, which the Assistant Chief Minister seems unwilling or unable to steer at the moment?
Minister.
So I know the Deputy is enjoying himself much as I am, but he is conflating many issues. We know that the Chief Minister is neither on a boat nor on an aeroplane. She is representing Jersey at an international convention, and I believe that it is right that she does that. Those of us remaining in the Assembly make our decisions based upon the proposals and legislation before us. The Minister for the Environment has made clear what the government position is in regard to landlord licensing, and I stand by that government position.
Are there any further questions for... Yes, Deputy Scott.
Yes, I wondered if the rapporteur is aware, if the Chief Minister is taking time to have any meetings on Teams during her time in Rwanda, and whether the possibility of even taking oral questions on Teams at a pre-allocated time had been considered.
Minister.
So I'm not aware that it is, because I don't think that is now possible under standing orders. I know that previously it has happened when we were in the middle of COVID, but I don't think that that's now allowed under standing orders. If it is, it's an oversight on my part, and I take full responsibility for it, but it's certainly, for my part, something which could be possible and maybe should be reviewed for future.
So would the Acting Chief Minister agree that in a democratic assembly, the usual procedure is for members to listen to the debate as it takes place and to form their judgment on the basis of the arguments that they have heard?
Minister.
Well, of course, the Deputy is absolutely right. But in an age of where we glory in this assembly of having three parties represented, that can be a slight nuance to that. But that is the general approach that I would expect members to have towards this assembly.
Yes, Natalia.
Thanks, sir. Given the fact that if that is true, how is it that Council of Ministers issue comments and take positions ahead of proposals being even proposed in this Assembly when they haven't actually heard the debate that's ensuing? How does he align that with the answer he's just given to Deputy Bala?
Minister.
That is the convention. It used to be that committees would submit comments on particular propositions, and now Council of Ministers submit comments on particular propositions as well. And it slightly, we're back to the actings, aren't we really? Because the reality is that on many more occasions than which Deputy has criticised government for providing comments as being inappropriate, he has criticised government for not providing comments, and that's inappropriate.
And the supplementary, sir, it's not just the comments, is it? Often the comments are accompanied by the government strongly urges members to reject this proposition without having heard, of course, the arguments that have been put forward. So presumably it is okay for the Council of Ministers to sit together and decide whether they support a proposal before they've even heard the arguments on the floor of the Assembly.
Minister.
it is certainly appropriate, and that is the process that this Assembly expects. But even the Council of Ministers can, from time to time, listen to the debates in this Assembly and change their minds.
Last question from Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Could the Acting Chief Minister confirm that there is no anticipation of any further last-minute states business that could take ministers or assistant ministers out of the Assembly this week, and also that he will be expecting all ministers and assistant ministers to be present for the votes?
Minister.
So I'm not aware of any ministers or assistant ministers who are due to be out of the Assembly during the course of this week, but I may not always be aware of that. And as the Deputy will know, events take place in government, and events can lead to ministers and assistant ministers needing to be absent to deal with those events.
Well, that brings this period of questions to an end. I invite a member to propose the adjournment.
Propose the adjournment, sir.
Anyone to speak on that proposition? The Assembly stands adjourned until 9:30 tomorrow.